Focus group that convinced them cinnamon-flavored Mountain Dew was the next big thing.
The people in the focus group, they couldn't get enough of it. And then they said, the more cinnamon, the better. So we are going to put in more cinnamon. We are really excited for people to try this product.
According to PepsiCo's data, all gathered from a single group of ill-intentioned respondents, customers of all ages will love the new soft drink's murky brownish-green color and will soon be lining up to try the carbonated beverage jam-packed with ground cinnamon. Various members of the focus group told reporters they believed the company had made a great decision.
Cinnablast is the best. I mean, I can't wait to tell all of my friends to go buy this thing.
Yeah. The only way they can make it better is if they took a couple of raw eggs, mixed them up in the bottle. People would go nuts.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. That's the number you need to call to take control of your radio to tell us what you want to talk about, because we bring in stories. We do this every day, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. But hey, that's what we want to talk about. We want to hear what you want to talk about. My name is Chris, or Lime Chris, or if you prefer, Key Lime Chris. I used to be on here a lot, but I hadn't been for the last couple of years, but it's good to be back. Yay. Joining me in studio is...
Lori. And Bonnie. Am I too loud?
No, you're not loud enough. I think you need to be louder all the time. Interestingly, I can't hear myself, but that's okay. Am I too loud? Probably. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to work on that, because this is my first time back behind the Chair 1 controls, so be prepared for many, many technical difficulties as we work through this and as Bonnie runs around to correct things before it gets out on the air.
I think you just couldn't hear yourself because it's like harder to hear your own voice. But at first you were quiet, so I turned you up a little. And now I almost think I'm kind of too loud, but...
That's okay. We turned you up because we can never hear Bonnie. How has everybody been doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
I had one of Lori's snickerdoodle cookies she made, so good.
So while I've been scrambling around here trying to get ready for the show, I have not had a snickerdoodle cookie, but I hear they're delicious, and I hear Bonnie makes them good and well sometimes, but sometimes she uses rancid seed oils. So I would not recommend that.
The last time I made snickerdoodles with seed oils at all, because it was before I knew they were bad, and it was palm oil. It's like one of the least bad ones, and it's not even a seed. I'm just lumping it in with vegetable oils. Well, I didn't realize it went rancid, and then me and Ian were at the point of eating the cookies. Like, I went all the way through and made them, and then I was like looking at all the ingredients, like what could have gone bad, and it was like this it's like lard egg, but made of palm oil, and it smelled like chemicals, and I was like, yep, that's it. It was like eating half snickerdoodle, half like plastic Barbie toy. It was really gross. So yeah, I was telling that story before the show started.
Yeah. I'm really not picky about what I make cookies with. As long as it's close to the recipe and they're edible, that's good enough for me.
I use butter. Butter always.
Now I only use butter. Like, I used to be like kind of like leaning towards vegetarian, so I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get lard in this. Calls for like Crisco. Maybe it's not lard. I don't know. But Crisco is definitely not vegan. So I was like, I'm going to get this like vegan Crisco. So I bought it made of palm oil. Very, 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 very bad.
I think Crisco is vegan. I think it's vegetable shortening.
Oh, okay. Maybe it did call for lard, and I was like, I'll just use this. I thought Crisco for some reason was lard, but
I don't know.
Maybe it's vegetables shortening.
I don't know, all those tubs of like fat
Never bought it
weird
before.
Me out, so I don't buy them.
Yeah.
No, I think lard just gets a bad name.
I don't think lard would weird me out as much as like the shortening tubs.
I was so
Right.
weirded out by lard the one time I bought it, because I thought it was like a better substitute for the same thing, like Crisco and all that, because it smells like pork. I don't like pork. And then I found out, oh, well, it's just made from the bottom of the barrel abused pigs, and they feed them soy, and that comes out in their fat. So it's just like eating soybean oil. So you might as well eat soybean oil, and it doesn't smell gross.
So you're encouraging everyone to eat soybean oil?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, I have found the secret to good cookies, and it's very simple. Step 1, decide which cookie you want. Step 2, get somebody else to make them for you, and then they're always much better. It's foolproof.
Yes, sometimes I'll even buy the ingredients, but I'll not have made them yet. And I'll be like, Elsbeth, I will pay you $5 if you make the cookies or something.
Yeah.
They do taste better like that.
I do. And that's it with anything. If somebody else is making it, it's always going to be better. The only duty I get at home making food is whatever meat we're doing. If it's fish, if it's beef, if it's chicken, that's me. So you can always blame me for that. So Bonnie, you brought in a few stories.
Yes.
Which one would you like to start off with?
Well, one that I just thought was really absurd and bad. It's not a very long article, by the way. Judge orders YouTube to reveal everyone who viewed a video. It's kind of a bad title. It means a specific video.
Any video.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you watch. That's because that's government's business.
YouTube's history, your YouTube history.
Yeah, I don't want to even think about that.
This, I think, was some kind of an informational video that taught you how to do something, and then a crime was committed with that kind of information. And even though the video is already taken down, the judge is ordering YouTube to give them the IP or maybe something else of everybody who watched that video. Says, if you've ever jokingly wondered if your search or viewing history is going to put you on some kind of a list, your concern may be more than warranted. Writes Mashable. In a now unsealed court document reviewed by Forbes, Google was ordered to hand over the names, addresses, telephone numbers, and user activity of YouTube accounts and IPs, so all of that watched select YouTube videos, part of a larger criminal investigation by federal investigators. So it's more than one video, but it's select ones.
So basically, you end up on a watch list because you unknowingly watched a video that was on some watch list.
And the video is not even illegal. Like, it's not criminal content like, CP or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's just a video of how-to things they don't want you to know how to.
Yep, knowledge.
Okay. Crazy.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit worse even. It says the videos were sent by undercover police
Of course they were.
to a suspected cryptocurrency launderer. In conversations with the Bitcoin trader, investigators sent links to public YouTube tutorials on mapping via drones and augmented reality software, Forbes details. The videos were watched more than 30,000 times, so that means totally blowing up the Fourth Amendment.
Right.
It's not a very specific search because there was a probability that you did something bad. No, it's all 30,000 people who watched these videos, so that's not specific enough. I can't remember the words that they use in the Fourth Amendment, but that basically covers it.
It's supposed to be something, of your own, something they can tie to you. But now, I mean, when they broaden parts of the protections of the Bill of Rights, and they narrow the ones that they don't like. Like now, owning a gun, I mean, well, if you're not a felon, and if you're not on any list, and all these other things we can come up with, but if we're going for a search warrant, we can use and we'll broaden it as far as we want.
And that's the word.
People we want.
It's it can't be overly broad.
Right, but they have no problem doing that.
Yep, they do it with license plate readers. That's totally too overly broad. Just everybody who drives down a certain road where a cop with a license plate reader is far too overly broad of a search.
Agreed.
Trying to think of other ways they do it, but even just like, I think
DUI stops.
Yeah, DUI stops.
I don't even drive, and I'm so very against those.
Yeah, it's asinine. You're guilty just because you're doing something normal. That's
Yeah.
my problem with it. It's something you do every day, but now you're suspected of a crime.
Yeah, it's presumed guilt.
Right, and that's wrong.
And they try to pretend that it's any different. A DUI stop is any different than all the stops they do daily. Like the other day, I was with somebody and he turned into a parking lot to do kind of a U-turn, but then realized there's a sign right in front of us still, mind you. He hadn't passed and wasn't able to see before he turned into this parking lot that said, "Do not enter." So before passing it, turned around, went out a different way. And then a cop immediately pulled us over and was like, "Just wondering what you guys are up to, because you went into a parking lot that says 'Do not enter.'" So obviously, like it was obviously a trap for people coming towards the sign, but it was even worse that he tried to stop the driver for this, because it was like you couldn't have possibly seen that sign until we were all the way like turned around. And it's just like, that's not illegal, that there's some private business with a sign in there because they have like a perfect parking lot for turning around. I guess they don't like people doing it, so they put a sign there saying "Do not enter," and then the cop just sits next to it, pulling people over all night because they entered, especially before being able to see it,
Right.
and then turning around just to like take his driver's license and go look and come back. That's an unreasonable search too, because you didn't break any law, you aren't suspected of doing any crime, but he's going to take your ID, and if it comes up that your license is suspended or this or that, or like there's a warrant out for your arrest, then now you've been searched and seized.
Yep. And so many people are okay with these things.
Right.
It's like an unproductive member of society, that cop is.
Well, he if it saves just one life, if it stops just one crime, then any cost, regardless of your liberty, it's worth it.
Oh,
That's the thought.
and also he, the reasoning, he was like, "So why do you stop people for turning around there?" And the cop was like, "Well, there's been a lot of accidents with people and that's probably not true." And then it was like 1 a.m. So he was like, "This time of night?" And the cop like didn't skip a beat. He was like, "Oh yeah, I don't believe you. Yeah, there's a lot
Right.
of accidents in New Boston, New Hampshire at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
In that
No.
specific parking lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you can just
Trying
see
to
all the
justify your
skid
job.
marks from people crashing into each other and running into walls at 1 a.m. in the morning.
In a
It's
small town.
You're right. It's asinine. And I'd like to say that, in some people will think of these abuses of the Constitution as being, they're getting worse. And I think they are getting worse. But, if you go back 30, 40 years, you're going to see the same abuses. They just didn't really care to hide them. They were just like, "I'm pulling you over, boy."
Well, yeah, and because we didn't have the interconnected social media that everyone has now,
Right.
you couldn't just see all of these things happening unless they were happening in front of you or like in your small town or to someone you knew. But now you see every single thing that they do. I think I read something the other day that said the cops kill 3 people every day on average.
Really?
Well, in America,
Yeah, in America.
I'm surprised it's that low.
That's a lot, though.
that is
3
a lot
people
every day.
killed. Not even just like, maimed or beaten or anything, killed by the police every day
Right.
on average. Probably some
And-
days they have, they aim for the stars,
Right.
get more than that.
And some of those, and undoubtedly, some people killed by police, and this is an unpopular thought, but some people just need killing. I don't doubt that in some instance they took down a really bad guy who was threatening to kill somebody else to take life and liberty from someone else, and some cop shot him.
How,
I'm
how
sure,
often
but not
is
all of
it
them.
that a cop is in that situation anyway? Usually they're there afterwards.
Right, and that's my point. Even it's got to be a small percentage, and most of these, I think, are. I can't speak for the statistics, but I suspect a lot of them are routine stops, or at least begin that way, or overreactions by police. I mean, maybe it's just all the headlines I read every single day, but makes me think that most killings by police are probably not necessary.
Well,
Is that a crazy thought?
Their policy is we can't help until it's too late. Like that's how the cops work. When I was like in my early 20s, My ex almost killed me. I ended up having a restraining order against him. Like, I moved, and he would sit outside of my house, my new house that I moved to, and wait outside and call my phone like on repeat for hours on end. So I couldn't use my phone for anything else. And I called the police and was like, "Hey, can you help me?" And they were like, "Nope.
Yeah.
Nope, there's nothing we can do." I was like, "So you just have to wait until I die for you to come stop this from happening to me?"
A similar thing happened to me, and I asked them that question. So my roommate had a crazy boyfriend, actually not an ex or anything, just her boyfriend, because she had terrible taste, who was like, he was like homeless, and he started being there all the time. So I was like, listen, he doesn't live here and pay rent, and I am uncomfortable with him in the house when I'm at work, so he's got to go if I'm not home. And then one day I wake up, I don't work this day, and he was in the house, but she wasn't, so I called her to tell him to go. I don't even think I confronted him because I didn't like him. And she wouldn't make him leave. So I called the cops to make him leave, and they came and told him to leave, and he did. And they were like, listen, they were talking to the roommate on the phone. They were like, listen, he can't be here if your roommate says no. Like, that's how it is. She lives here and he doesn't. And so they made him leave, but then he just sat in the van with a crazy angry look on his face in the road. So I called them again. And this was before I was really against calling cops, but and I didn't have any like, oh man, to call up and to come. Like, I lived in a state by myself and I barely moved there. But anyways, so he was sitting in a van right in my front yard with like an angry look on his face for hours. So I called the cops. And they came and they were like, listen, we can't do anything. He's allowed to be in the road. And I was like, so he's like obviously like mad at me. He's like, it's not like he had beat me up or anything, but They literally told me when I said, well, what if he like tries to kill me? Like, are you just going to be here after he kills me? And they said, that's how it works.
Yeah. Like, this guy had stabbed me. Like, he went to jail. He stabbed me. Like, he beat me up and everything. And it was the same person and they still wouldn't do anything. That
should be like at least a reason that you can't be outside of someone's house. Like,
yep, they were like, well, he's far enough away. Like, he's out of his, what's the word I'm looking for?
The restraining order zone.
The zone.
Like,
he's out of the zone far enough, but like he could still see me.
Yeah.
Like, just see my house and see me, like, if I walked past a window or whatever.
And I'm not like advocating that cops should be able to remove anyone if they're sitting somewhere and it's making someone uncomfortable, but it's just like, if there were private police, I would expect them to be able to do something. These police, they aren't going to do any more than they're paid to do, and what they're really paid to do is pull people over for speeding so they can get revenue. So.
Yeah, they're there to protect profit. They're not actually, like, they even ruled in a court hearing that they're not there to protect you.
Right.
They don't have no responsibility to protect you at all.
No obligation whatsoever.
Yeah.
But we're here to serve
but you
and
still
protect.
have to pay them.
Asterisk.
And you can't pay a different company to protect you instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be these guys who don't actually do anything for you. You have to pay them, but they don't work for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay them, then they'll come arrest you for not paying them.
It's asinine. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. What do you think? I mean, this is insanity. Or are we just all crazy? Maybe we're the crazy ones, and everybody out there listening knows what we really should be talking about. I'd love to hear from you. Any more on that?
Yeah, so there was, the videos were sent by an undercover police to a suspected cryptocurrency launderer. In conversations with the Bitcoin trader, investigators sent links to public YouTube tutorials on mapping via drones and augmented reality software. The videos were watched more than 30,000 times, presumably by thousands of users unrelated to the case. YouTube's parent company, Google, was ordered by federal investigators to quietly hand over all such viewer data for the period of January 1st to January 8th, 2023.
So everybody who was on there looking at that video for 7 whole days. That's insane.
I'm curious about what YouTube's response was.
I'm not sure if it says what
you... Did they turn it all over?
Well, they always do. There's a problem with YouTube and Google and Gmail and stuff like that. They get ordered by federal agencies so often to turn over data that there are literally scams where somebody who's not the federal government will just send them like a freaking email that says, I order you to hand over all this stuff, and they just hand it over. And it's actually a scammer.
Right. But if you listen to them when they go up on Capitol Hill, they always talk about, we're very concerned about this government overreach too. And, we vet each one of these very carefully, and we make sure that, it's realistic and it's a real issue. And before we turn anything over, no, you don't.
No.
You do when it's convenient and you have to go testify before Congress, then you'll say these things. But you don't. You fall in line.
It's completely easy to just say things.
Well, and they gather all this data, and then they hope that they found something, and then they're like, this was the thing that we were looking for in the first place. They don't even know what they're looking for. They just hope something falls in their lap, and then they're like, that was the thing.
Yeah.
There it is.
But in the meantime, we came across this Lori, and somebody named Bonnie, so I think they need a little further attention.
I don't even understand what him being interested in cryptocurrency laundering has to do with drone mapping and AI or augmented reality, but
it sounds like they were just fishing. Like they wanted to see who was watching, so it could be completely unrelated. It's just to have an excuse to get somebody's name and follow that, and then we'll find out what else this guy who watched a video might have done. It's asinine.
It says a court granted the government's request for the information, adding that Google was asked to not publicize the request, which seems like a problem too. It says the requests are raising alarms for privacy experts who say the requests are unconstitutional and are transforming search warrants into digital dragnets, which that's something that goes in.
It's a good phrase.
Goes and looks all over like a Facebook page and grabs information, right? Or like,
well, Dragnet, they're
clicks.
just saying that, while we're looking for evidence related to this one specific individual and this one specific crime, we want to cast this net so wide that we're going to come up with everyone. The Dragnet is catching everybody who might be tangentially associated with that person or that idea or
it's a DUI stop, but on the internet.
Yeah, it's a huge one.
And this is a really good point. It says that Albert Foxconn was that the person who said it was a digital dragnet. He also said, no one should fear a knock at the door from police simply because of what the YouTube algorithm serves up. I'm horrified that the courts are allowing this. And that's such a good point. Imagine that just popped up for you to view, and then a cop is knocking on your door asking you about viewing this YouTube video.
Right. And people have no control over what the social media algorithms throw in front of their face.
And it's not like it was, like she said, like CP or something. It was a video about drones and augmented reality. So if that popped up in your algorithm and you found it interesting and you watched it, there's no crime.
Yeah, even if I searched it.
Yeah,
if I wanted to watch it, there's no crime.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. But I think it's important to differentiate. In this case, they were actually putting that out there and with the anticipation that they could catch all these people watching it. It's insane.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what this has to do with the cryptocurrency launderer that was suspected of doing that. I don't understand what this video type has to do with it or why it has anything to do with the fact that he sent it to the guy, but
I think it has everything to do about who follows him and what people he knows. 603-283-6160 is our number. This is Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted. If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. It comes after the Biden campaign announced the president would not be taking part in the originally arranged commission debates in September and October. The first debate will see the two men meet in Atlanta on June the 27th, with the debate played out live on CNN, but without a studio audience. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. Robert Rico is reportedly fighting for his life, according to his defence minister. The gunman, who shot the PM 5 times, was detained at the scene. The Slovak government say the shooting was a politically motivated attack. Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. President Joe Biden recently withheld weapons due to concerns about the impact on civilians. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
A separate package including $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million for tactical vehicles and $60 million in mortar rounds has been moved forward, although it's not clear when that will be sent. US weapons experts say, though, plans to deliver aid to Israel only days after plans to hold back actually reduce pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to pay more attention to civilian deaths.
A barge has collided with a bridge in Galveston, Texas, causing part of the Pelican Island Bridge to break off. An oil spill has also been detected, but at this point no injuries have been reported. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin, Texas.
Pictures show a large concrete slab at the front of the barge. Officials say the vessel it was towing broke loose, then hit the railroad portion of the bridge. Experts are on scene assessing the extent of the damage. The causeway, which is the only way off Pelican Island, is closed. Texas A&M University Galveston is located on the island, and the school says power has now been restored to campus.
US inflation eased slightly last month, according to new data released on Wednesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price for a basket of goods and services, increased 0.3% in April, less than was expected. FSN's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
April's CPI figures show efforts to ease inflation could be paying off. According to the Labour Department, overall prices increased 3.4% from a year earlier, down from 3.5% in March. In a statement, President Joe Biden said fighting inflation and lowering costs is his top economic priority. But he says there's a lot more to do.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160, and this episode of Free Talk Live, well, hold on, this bumper music is just going on and on and on.
I can hear you over it this time.
Okay, just checking. This episode of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. With fees of less than a penny per transaction, Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And joining you in studio is myself, Chris.
Lori.
And Bonnie.
And we are stumbling through tonight. Hopefully it's not too painful. The thing is, this is my first time in the first chair in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know.
I think you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you for saying that.
And I'm the worst first chair host, they say.
No, you lost your title to me. So
that's just what the trolls say.
Congratulations.
It's not actually true. They don't say anything true.
We have been talking about a ridiculous thing where YouTube and the federal government are criminalizing, I guess, watching a video on YouTube. They just used it as a way to cast this wide dragnet to get more information. We're guessing about a crypto individual, but they wanted to know who he's been talking to, and by using YouTube as a throughway, because YouTube is going to give them whatever they ask for. They got everybody's name, 30,000 people at least. Did you want to?
So I clicked on, how at the beginning of the story it said, according to Mashable. So I clicked on Mashable's article about this same topic because I thought they might have more information. I specifically want to know about what it has to do with them sending this video to a suspected cryptocurrency launderer under the username Elon Musk. So it's like WHM. Elon Musk.
William?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
So it just says that in conversations with the Bitcoin trader, investigators sent links to public YouTube videos, so they're not his video,
right,
to him, and they were about mapping via drones and augmented reality software. So what does that have to do with anything? Like, we sent a video. It could have been about...
They want to know who he is. So they sent him the link to the video, and then they're going to get all the users who watched that video in a certain time frame so then they can find out who he is.
Dang, that's really insidious. Okay,
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense.
And obviously, he was the only one who watched it. Right?
His name is Wim.
Hopefully he didn't even watch it, and he was like, I'm not going to watch this. It's boring.
Yeah, that's so true. How many times do people send you a video and you're like, I'm not clicking on this?
Yeah, just like laugh, react, and be like, that was great.
Yeah, laugh, react, literally.
Hold on. He immediately, he's searching for something else. Funny cat videos. Okay.
I've been watching videos of people cutting soap recently, and that's what the CIA would find if they looked. Or the FBI, whatever.
Cutting soap?
Yeah, it's like they take one of those like package opening knives and they're cutting like, I specifically want the driest soap. So I look for ones that say driest soap in the title, and it's like, and it's so good. I watch that to fall asleep. Sometimes I watch it throughout the day, and then I'm like, what am I doing?
I got into one for a while that was like the gym chalk. They used to like do their hands and like crush them.
Oh, that is nice.
Yep.
I like that too.
Yeah, it was nice.
That's like of the same vein, like the chalk and the soap, but my number one is always soap.
So is it just the sound? I mean, what is it about a video of somebody cutting soap? I've got to know at this point.
I like the way it breaks into pieces so easily. I like the way it falls onto the surface underneath and is like...
It's just aesthetically pleasing.
Some people say that ASMR gives them tingles, and I don't get tingles, but I get like, wow, oh my God, yeah, that's so good. Like I say that stuff out loud while watching it, and I'm like, yes, thank you for cutting it that way. That's exactly what I would have done. The only thing that's missing is like, I love the smell of really dry soap. Like anytime I go to a hotel, I'm like smelling those terrible soaps that dry your skin out.
Hopefully they're fresh, right?
Yeah.
It's not like the leftover soap that the housekeeping didn't grab.
I don't even wash my hands when I go to the bathroom at the stupid visiting room where I have to visit Ian in the prison.
Right.
Because they don't have like a soap dispenser. They just have a bunch of those little tiny soap, like hotel like soaps sitting on the sink. I'm like, I'd rather not wash my hands. It's not like I'm like doing really gross stuff in there. So
unbelievable.
I'm not going to pick up a used hotel soap mini bar and that's sitting in behind the like faucet. That's just disgusting.
That like, who knows?
Yeah.
Who's used it.
Every time I go there's some little kid like playing around in the bathroom too. Why would you let your kid free playing around in the prison bathroom?
Right. And I won't even get into the cost, but I'm thinking that there's a reason we use soap dispensers, because they're much less expensive than buying individually wrapped little bars of soap. But hey, it's your tax money. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's asinine.
I don't really see anything else new about this story, but maybe the caller was calling in about that this story specifically. I don't know what he wanted to talk about.
Thank you. And we're going to a slightly screened caller, Billy. Billy, you're on Free Talk Live.
It's your boy, the evolutionary Riz Daddy, capitalist young skeet. And it's not necessarily your taxpayer money that funds it. You know, it's borrowed money. So you're kind of shielded from it.
Borrowed
even
from
if it
who?
is,
Borrowed from who?
Hmm?
Borrowed
It's either
from who?
printed or borrowed from people who hold bonds.
Oh yeah,
Lori.
printed or borrowed. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
not
we're-
necessarily.
we're so much
Probably
shield-
is.
we're
So it all
much
comes down
shielded
to
as
taxpayer money,
taxpayers
though.
Come
Because-
on, one at a time.
That's a fallacy. No, stop that, Lori. But
Oh, okay.
I kind of didn't
I
want
was
to talk about that. But hello.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
still
hey,
here.
Lori. Where did you get your law degree?
Where did you
The
get yours?
Deneen School of Law for Common Citizens? Stop this and crap propaganda and bad faith legal myth that the police don't have any duty to protect you. Stop that.
They do not.
literally ruled it. I can bring it up for you.
Libertarian myth. What's that?
Is it?
There is a law. I mean, not a law. There is a court decision with that. If not title, like that's what they reference it as. I will pull it up.
I think you're wrong. I think there's more than one time
Studied
that
under
they.
J Noon too, Bonnie.
No, I didn't. I heard about this from Ian.
So here, let me tell you what all those cases make up. It's called. There's a doctrine for it. It's called the public duty doctrine, right? It says that all these servants have only a general duty to protect the public, and not any specific duty to protect any individual. That means
That's exactly what it says here, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So whenever Lori was in danger, they didn't have any duties to protect her. That's a problem because she was paying
She
them.
didn't break any laws. Her ex-husband was walking the line of the law. They couldn't do anything until he broke
Is that
it.
not
You understand
harassment?
that? And that doesn't. So that they'll protect you, right? Once he crosses your property line,
No, they won't. They won't be there, and he could do something in like 5 seconds.
they'll come if you call. If he trespasses and you tell him that he.
This
he
is the
can't
thing.
be
If
there,
I had a
and he doesn't get up,
bodyguard, which I was allowed to just pay to do the job of the police that they aren't doing, then he wouldn't be sitting on the side of my house if
get
there was somebody
bounced.
who used to
why
have
don't you go pay for
abused
a
me and
bodyguard
stuff.
then, Lori? Or why don't you go pay for a bodyguard for Lori then?
Well, they're already
you're free
taking
to
money
do that.
from her to do with things, so they should do the job that they're supposed to do, protecting individual people who pay them.
But they're
So
not
here's what it
going
says. If you'll
Money,
mute him
Bonnie.
for a second,
We get
because
more
he
than we
doesn't,
pay
he
for
just
in
does this
taxes.
the whole time. So I just like mute him while he talks. So this is what it says.
I mean,
One of the earliest cases to discuss the public duty doctrine is South versus Maryland. In that case, the Supreme Court held that police officers did not have a duty to protect an individual from harm unless they had a special relationship with that individual. This special relationship could be established through actions such as making an arrest, placing someone in custody, or making promises of protection. Well, they didn't promise to protect you, Lori.
Okay. We're gonna go back to Skeet.
Skeeter, but he called himself Billy for some reason, like as if he doesn't make it on the show every night. It's
Okay, go
stupid.
ahead, Billy.
do you understand this is a tort law doctrine, Bonnie? It's just saying that you can't sue them if you get if you suffer some harm from a criminal. That's all it says.
It's saying that
it
they
has
have no
nothing
duty
to
to
do with
protect
their
you when
job
you're in
duty.
danger, and that's what we were saying. Like you
Yeah, do
adding in
understand
this
what
like
to protect means?
this is what talking to him
understand
is
what
like
to
every night. It's like he's like just arguing over a stupid definition of a word, and when we prove that we're right, he just starts talking about something
Bonnie,
else. He doesn't make any sense. He's not interesting.
Let me ask you. Let me put this in perspective for you.
No,
Like,
yeah, I didn't put any. There's nothing to put in perspective. I am completely right. The internet says I'm right, and you're not even arguing anything that we said before was wrong.
Lori, Chris or Lori, can someone look up public duty doctrine? Look up the definition in the Merriam-Webster definition. Cause
I would, but I'm doing a radio show now. But
No
I,
one cares about
So
stuff like
I
this. He wants to talk
understand
about.
what you're saying. You're looking at all the issues and looking at them legally, and that doesn't change the fact that they don't really have. It is true that they don't have an absolute duty to protect everyone all the
They
time.
don't have any civil liability.
Well, that's a good
to
point.
protect you.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
That's it.
Hey, man, thanks for the call.
And do you know what?
Yeah, I get where he's coming from, and what he was saying was, you know, they don't have any civil liability. They can't be sued because you say they didn't do
How's
their
that
job.
any different than what we're saying? Like, I'm not arguing the exact mechanism of action for it. Like,
Bonnie,
I'm just
they're
saying that
different words.
these people are not going to protect you because they're going to neglect their duties because they're like, well, I can't get sued for it. Okay, then that's the mechanism of action, but we're still saying they have no duty to protect you, and that's what it means.
Right.
He's an idiot. He's literally so stupid.
So the fact that a police officer won't come and remove somebody who's harassing someone, even though they're just outside the line of a restraining order, but they will stop your friend from not pulling into a parking lot and harass them over it, even though they also aren't doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any difference.
Make any sense at all.
Know? They just do whatever they want. If they don't want to come and deal with the problem, they just won't.
Yeah.
No, they absolutely won't.
That's the next case I brought up in this article. I brought up to get the definition of no duty to submit and what Supreme Court case it was from. It talks about how the police were called multiple times to a woman's house to investigate break-ins. Not even like someone who was just outside the house, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he was skirting the line. No, her house had been broken into multiple times. And then when he finally assaulted her, they didn't get in trouble for doing nothing each time she called. Well, they had no duty to.
Right. And that's the bottom line.
Jeffrey Dahmer had a underage kid in his possession, right? And the kid escaped out into the street, and the cops brought him back
to Jeffrey Dahmer's house.
Yeah, and he killed him. But like they didn't find out who this kid was. They just took him, Jeffrey Dahmer, at his word that this was like his boyfriend, who he was like 13 years old.
Whoa.
And there's women in the street like, there's something wrong with this person. Like, can you do something, protect him? And they don't. Like,
that's
even
when
back
I think
then,
that
even
like
back then, they still had no
and
illusions that they were protecting you.
And that's an egregious example.
I just start to think in situations like that because it's so egregious and ridiculous. It's that that wasn't a normal serial killer. How do you get away with it for so long? Well, the police were like working with him, like getting rid of people they didn't want, or just like causing an air of uncomfortableness and fear in the populace. Like he was working with them because why would that ever happen? He's my boyfriend. Bring him back. He's 13, and women are saying, "This boy told us he's being tortured or something."
It was because they didn't want to deal with the gay community. Right. And they were like,
was it Utah?
This is icky. I think it was like Michigan.
Oh.
It was somewhere. It doesn't really matter. It was happening everywhere back then. They were just like, the gays are icky, and so we're not going to do anything about it.
It does make you wonder how many years it was just like, man, we roughed up that guy pretty bad. How could we dispose of a body in a way that no one would ever find him? Hey, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Hungry?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot to eat them. Yep.
Well, that's interesting. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. We'd like to hear from you and listen to what you're interested in hearing about. Jesus. What is with my mind? I swear to God, it starts with a tick bite, and you get Lyme disease. Then you find out you may have had a few strokes along the way.
I forgot about that.
Have you been checked for JFK or RFK worms?
Oh my God.
I haven't, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Another story I brought in was the CIA. So, you know, a lot of people in the liberty community are talking to people, man, you can't trust all those apps on your phone. And many people will say, you know, if Amazon wants to track, they want to use some of this data to improve the types of recommendations I get, I'm fine with that. But what if all that ad tracking data ends up in places you never suspected, like the CIA? This is from Reason, and the title of the article is, "Here's How the CIA Plans to Use Your Ad Tracking Data." The intelligence community is admitting that information from data brokers is sensitive, but isn't accepting hard limits on how to use it. For years, the U.S. government has bought information on private citizens from commercial data brokers. Now, for the first time ever, American spy masters are admitting that this data is sensitive, but they're leaving it up to the spy agencies on how to use it. Last week, Director of National Intelligence, DNI, Avril Haines, released a policy framework for commercially available information. Her office oversees the 19 agencies in the intelligence community, including the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and all military intelligence branches. In the 2018 case, Carpenter versus United States, the Supreme Court ruled that police need a warrant to obtain mobile phone location data from phone companies. During the case, the Reason Foundation filed an amicus brief against warrantless snooping. As a workaround, the feds instead just started buying data from third-party brokers. So we're not just taking the data or getting it from your phone company. We'll buy it. And then
with your money.
With your money. And that should be fine. As national security journalist Spencer Ackerman points out in the Brenner Wars newsletter, the framework doesn't require the feds to delete any old purchase data. Earlier this year, Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat of Oregon, called on the NSA to purge all data that it bought without warrant, without following the Federal Trade Commission's privacy policies. So,
are they just saying like we can do it because we paid for it? So
yeah,
it's
not even a search. We just bought it.
Even though it's like taxpayer dollars that bought it, probably.
No, we were at this flea market, and this company was there selling big blocks of data. So the CIA just bought it. And once the CIA got a hold of it, they decided to share it with 19 of their closest friends, like the NSA, the FBI, and everybody else. So you really don't have a leg to stand on. It's just data we bought.
And they think that telling the NSA to delete it is going to do anything. The Patriot Act in 2001, they straight up asked the NSA, are you spying on American citizens? And they're like, no, of course not. Why would we ever do that? And then, of course they are.
Yeah.
And have been all of this
leaked,
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody ever learns the lesson either, that they should maybe be slightly more careful with their information.
Actually, that's such a good point that I'm thinking about Skeeter. He's always talking about, listen, we don't want to do ANCAP things because societies need to learn and let societies fail, and then we'll have more freedom. Well, he is pro-government. Has he not learned how it doesn't ever bring more freedom? It's like, so you're pro-government because you think it'll bring more freedom, but it never has. And Skeeter's the last caller, if you don't know who I'm talking about. And that's the thing. That's a huge topic of his he didn't get into tonight, Chris, since I know you don't talk to him as often as us, but he's always like, I hate Javier Milei. He's bad. If you bring more freedom into a country instead of the people learning from pain, then it will end up bad for them somehow. They need to learn. Well, people like Skeeter don't learn that governments don't bring more freedom. And besides, he's also a
collapsitarian.
No, I'm not even going to call him that because he's not like a libertarian. He's a collapse promoter. But as soon as the government collapses, when no one understands how bad, like, false authority of a human over another human's body is, well, then there will just be a new group that's like, you know what, we are coming in to build the roads and not do anything bad, and then you end up with the same situation.
But we'll do it better this time, Bonnie. That's okay.
That's a terrible theory anyway. People don't learn from pain. Pain is an awful teacher. I hope Skeeter doesn't have any pets, like a dog, that he has to train, because that's not how you train a dog. That's how you make a dog do a certain action, but it doesn't actually train the dog.
I feel like it doesn't even make the dog do things most of the time. Like when I first got a dog and I was not a lifelong dog owner, I just got a dog at 21, I would always like yell at Coconut when he peed and pooped on the ground and stuff. First of all, I had to get him fixed, and that helped a lot. But even then, he would still do it randomly, and I'd be like, oh my God, why? And I would be like, this is bad. Not like just screaming at the top of my lungs, but put his face in and be like, this is bad. And then one day I was like, I think I just need to do the opposite, and instead just...
You praise him when he goes outside.
Yeah, that's what I did. I'd be like, good, outside. And I was like always thinking like my neighbors probably think I'm so gross that my dog's pooping inside, because I'm like, good, you did it outside. But
such a nice change of pace.
But
yeah, like the pain doesn't train the dog. So if you put a choke collar on a dog, it's gonna not pull on the leash when you have the choke collar on, because every time it does, it hurts. But if you put it in a regular collar, that's no longer going to work because it doesn't have the choke collar on anymore. Or if you train a dog with an electric fence to not leave the yard, and then there's no more electric fence, the dog's going to run the first opportunity it gets for freedom.
And sometimes when they want to bad enough, they go with the electric fence anyway.
Yeah, they run right through it.
Yeah.
Like pain is not a good teacher. Positive reinforcement is a good teacher. Give people freedom and educate them.
I like the the collapsitarian idea at first blush. I mean, like, because I don't see a long life for the United States. I mean, we've exceeded our expiration date anyway. I mean, no large free country has ever made it past 250 years.
That's what people say.
Yeah, that's what they say, and we're beyond that.
And it just sounds scary because it's like if things are going to get much worse before a collapse and maybe during a collapse, like I don't want to be involved in that.
I would rather separate before it gets to that point.
Yeah, me too. Like,
yeah, I just want out.
So you're not allowed to have out though.
Yeah, I know, but
can't just leave.
That's illegal to stop wanting to be in an agreement that was supposed to be that you could leave whenever you wanted.
And that you never agreed to.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even the states originally agreeing to it, they're supposed to be allowed out when they wanted. That was like an argument. Some people were like, wait, I don't want us to join if we can't get out when we want. And then they're like, oh, yeah, of course you will.
Very clear on that. Yeah, and it's asinine that you can't. But some states put that in their constitution that they are part of the United States.
Oh, but the Supreme Court said no. The feds said no. You can't leave us, even though it's in your own constitution that you can, Texas. So now you can't.
The Texans are I think, a great litmus test. I think they're going to be the first ones who really try that. I mean, and they're going to get the furthest, I think. I don't see them backing down. And they keep raising the stakes. The feds do, and the Texans do. So
Texas is just like a different country. It's like when I moved from Texas to New Hampshire, sometimes it was just like feeling like I'm in a dream because it just feels like I've never been out of the country. So to go from Texas to New Hampshire, it felt like I was in another country. Like I'd look at the map and see how far away I was, but even not just that, like just being out in a store, being in a bar, I'd be like, this doesn't feel real, doesn't feel right. It's just like a whole different culture. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know, it's just so easy to imagine it a different country.
Right.
That's how I felt when I went from Massachusetts to Utah. Same thing. Mm. It was like total culture shock.
And they just shouldn't be the same country. It makes no sense. Massachusetts and Utah, Texas and New Hampshire, why are they the same country? Why should the people who want to live a certain way in Massachusetts, why should they have any say over how the people in Utah live?
Which is why the states were states. They were their own countries at one point. 603-283-6160 is our number. Come back after the break and give us a call. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. It comes after the Biden campaign announced the president would not be taking part in the originally arranged commission debates in September and October. The first debate will see the two men meet in Atlanta on June the 27th, with the debate played out live on CNN, but without a studio audience. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. Robert Rico is reportedly fighting for his life, according to his defence minister. The gunman, who shot the PM 5 times, was detained at the scene. The Slovak government say the shooting was a politically motivated attack. Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. President Joe Biden recently withheld weapons due to concerns about the impact on civilians. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
A separate package including $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million for tactical vehicles, and $60 million in mortar rounds has been moved forward, although it's not clear when that will be sent. US weapons experts say, though, plans to deliver aid to Israel only days after plans to hold back actually reduce pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to pay more attention to civilian deaths.
A barge has collided with a bridge in Galveston, Texas, causing part of the Pelican Island Bridge to break off. An oil spill has also been detected, but at this point no injuries have been reported. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin, Texas.
Pictures show a large concrete slab at the front of the barge. Officials say the vessel it was towing broke loose, then hit the railroad portion of the bridge. Experts are on scene assessing the extent of the damage. The causeway, which is the only way off Pelican Island, is closed. Texas A&M University Galveston is located on the island, and the school says power has now been restored to campus.
US inflation eased slightly last month, according to new data released on Wednesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price for a basket of goods and services, increased 0.3% in April, less than was expected. FSN's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
April CPI figures show efforts to ease inflation could be paying off. According to the Labour Department, overall prices increased 3.4% from a year earlier, down from 3.5% in March. In a statement, President Joe Biden said fighting inflation and lowering costs is his top economic priority. But he says there's a lot more to do.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the civil unrest in Georgia, where riot police have taken on protesters demonstrating against a new foreign agents law passed by the country's parliament. The law, backed by Moscow, requires organizations to register as foreign agents if more than 20% of their funding comes from outside Georgia. It's similar to laws that have been used in Moscow to silence Kremlin critics. Anne McElvoy, executive editor of Politico Europe, says the law has become a lightning rod for Georgians who fear that Vladimir Putin has territorial aspirations towards their country.
There's always been an independent streak to Georgians, and even in the Soviet period, they were a bit more freewheeling. This attempt to impose very Putin-style law, which basically says that if you have any contacts or receive any funding for your organization from outside the country, then you're a foreign agent. This just has the smell of a kind of Putin-style attempt to clamp down on anything outside the control of those who want to keep control of what happens inside Georgia.
Opposition parties in Georgia say one byproduct of the law is that it will damage Georgia's efforts to join the European Union. Protesters on the streets of Tbilisi say the government's move to pass the law is a direct capitulation to pressure from the Kremlin. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. And Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. This week, mothers across the nation invented a new drug to worry about, confirming that the completely fictitious new substance was appearing in schoolyards across the nation and is easily created from simple household products like sugar, window cleaner, and petroleum jelly. Calling the totally made-up narcotic Scramp, mothers in desperate need of something to fret over deluded themselves into constantly agonizing over the widespread drug epidemic that exists solely in their minds.
My son sits in his room for hours and hours. It must be Scramp. He's a Scramp head. I bet they'll figure out how to scramp with this too.
In other news, a man confidently strides through a beaded curtain without parting it. A father takes a picture of his daughter every day from birth until he abandons his family. And the same homeless man is always begging for change on the same United flight. Stalled contract negotiations have prevented me from reviewing any more news until I receive a co-producer credit. But for more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. Give us a call. Let us know what you'd like to talk about. In studio, it's myself,
Lori.
Chris.
Lori.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Chris and Bonnie is coming. She's on her way. But this episode of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Liberty Minded. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at libertyminded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at libertyminded.com. That's libertyminded.com. So we have been talking about this story from Reason, and it is about the CIA and other agencies. They're not the only ones. Who have now decided that, you know, it's really too much trouble to go through and you know, get warrants and those pesky things you have to go through before you get to find out what people are up to. So the agencies are just buying data from data wholesalers and things like that from social media companies so they can find out everything you've been up to. Geolocation data, sure. Web search information, no problem. Anything else that you've done online, they can just buy, and that way they don't have to go to those pesky and often troublesome court systems and have to actually justify why they want information about you. And when we were last on, we had talked about Ron Wyden of Oregon, Senator, discussing why this needs to have some guardrails around it and why they need to do. Wyden has aggressively pushed for transparency on data purchases over the past few years. In 2021, he uncovered that the Defense Intelligence Agency was buying American smartphone location data. I apologize for
Wait,
that.
was I muted? I don't know.
Yeah, I had you muted. I'm sorry you weren't here.
Oh, I'm just thinking there's something else that's the DIA, right? So that's not DIA. I've never heard of Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
That's not DIA, right? Isn't DIA drugs?
DEA.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I was like, wait.
Yeah, so they've just been buying this stuff. It's no big deal. It's just all Americans' geolocation data on your smartphone.
It's like drugs to them.
Right, exactly. Now, who really carries a smartphone anyway? I mean, does anybody in this room actually have one of those?
Yeah.
I think that's for rich people.
Kind of like all of this totally skirts due process.
No, they they're not going to court over it. They're just buying it.
They just
It's
buy
like a yard sale.
Buy all of your location data. Buy all of
Where
your.
are they buying it from? Yeah, did it say?
Data dealers. I mean, these people are around, and they have contracts with Google and YouTube or Google and Meta and everybody else. And
Because I see
Microsoft. You can buy data.
some companies put specifically like, we promise not to sell your data. So it's just companies like that you like Shein or something, you bought a $20 dress and it falls apart in 2 days, but they just give your data to the government.
Yeah,
Or,
like
I'm not saying
apps
them
and stuff.
No.
A lot of
We don't provide it directly, and they can say that we don't provide it to governments. They can say that
But they give it to some data dealer.
data dealer
They
who
sell
can
it
then
to a third
sell
party.
it to a government agency. So
They do it with everything, not just your location data, but like your genealogical data that has been given to them by people who are related to you at some
Or me.
point.
I
You
did
know,
it.
or you. So they'll just go and get that instead of having to get a warrant to obtain someone's DNA. They'll just go get the genealogical data for people that are related to the person they want the DNA from and get it that way.
I did, 23andMe and Ancestry.com. And another thing I was doing that I didn't think it was such a big deal until Chris Wade explained it to me was I was getting like probably $20 a year. Even when I was like super poor, it almost wasn't enough to be worth it. But I was like, if I try harder, like I bet I'll get more money. Where you just took every receipt where you went to the grocery store or whatever and you scanned them on this thing. Oh man, I don't even remember what it's called now, the one I was using.
But
I
there
think
are
it started
apps
with a
like
Z.
that. Yeah.
And like I scan my receipt, it looks for specific things. It's like you earned 10 points, and once you get 1,000 points, you'll get $20.
Yay.
And I was like, what's so wrong about that to Chris Wade? And he explained it. And I talk about this a lot on the show. Like every time privacy comes up, I bring this up because I think some people might be like, privacy. Why do I care about privacy? Well, because I was like that.
If you have nothing to hide.
Well, it was just kind of like, I know I don't want them reading my messages, but why do I care if they know I bought like some food at the grocery store? Well, one thing Chris Wade said when I brought that whole thing up, and which is why I stopped doing my receipt scanning app, was he was like, well, it could be something like somebody in your neighborhood was killed with a hammer. So then they use that data to find everyone who bought a hammer in that region in those certain months, and then you're a suspect. So I was like, whoa,
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
really good point.
And that can be anything. And the point is the government has figured out new ways to get around the protections of the Bill of Rights. And that's what this story is really about. What lengths does the government go to not play by the rules? And that's the disgusting part for me, that a government, at least the way it started, was not supposed to be
Highway
looking
robbers?
right, was not supposed to looking for ways to get around the rules that they just convinced everyone they would not abuse. And that's the most horrible part of all this. The most horrible part of all this is that Americans, generation after generation, have continued to buy into this lie, and it's insane.
I just think it's funny that, what's his name? Lysander Spooner, he's always using the comparison. He's like, they're no different from a highway robber if they're going to act like this. And he made all those points really well in No Treason. And me and Ian watched Barry Lyndon like a few months before Ian went to jail because we were like watching all Stanley Kubrick movies. And the last one we watched was Lolita. But anyways, we watched Barry Lyndon, and he has to leave town because he thinks he killed someone. He didn't really kill anyone. And this is like olden times in England. So he's going down the road on his horse, and two highway robbers stop him and take his only shillings that his mom gave him, so he has to join the military. And they're just so ridiculous. They're like, what are you going to do about it? Do you have a gun? And he's like, no, but I need that. Like, I'm trying to go to town to like wherever town he's going to, and like start my life anew. And they're like, we don't care. We have a gun and you don't. They're just like as ridiculously mean and over the top. And that's exactly what the government is, except now they have suits and ties.
You bet.
And guns.
Yeah, and they have a gun and you don't.
Some of this data is collected and sold directly by the apps. For example, an intelligence company called Xmode once paid Muslim Pro an app that offers a daily prayer calendar and compass pointing towards Mecca.
That's sad.
To include a few lines of location tracking code.
That's just like, it's just sad that that's the thing that they're trapping people with. Like, oh, it's a nice little app. It gives you a daily prayer and shows you where Mecca is.
Right.
And it's giving it to the government and getting people in trouble for no reason.
Xmode then sold the data to U.S. government agencies. Muslim Pro claims that it did not intend to sell the data to the government and ended the arrangement after the story broke. In other cases, data is siphoned from advertising markets. Every time a user opens a website with paid advertisements, their location and attributes appear on a real-time bidding RTB or RTB exchange, a virtual auction where companies buy ad space.
Whoa, so just because you open like the Facebook page with an ad on it, not because you clicked on the ad?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Or this news story, for example, that I'm reading right now, there are ads on the page. So right now, all that information goes in real time to a virtual auction where companies buy an ad space.
Virtual flea market.
Yes. Data brokers posing as advertisers scrape the listings for information on users. Quote, any government with a halfway decent cyber intelligence program is participating in these RTB exchanges because it's such an immensely valuable source of data, unquote, said Byron Tao, author of Means of Control, How the Hidden Alliance of Tech and Government is Creating a New American Surveillance State.
You can't even shut it off, the tracking. So I haven't had phone service on my phone in, 6 years. And when we were traveling across the country in an RV, I would open my phone on my Google Maps just in the middle of wherever.
Yep.
And I would be there on my map. My little flashing dot would be right where we are. I have no service. I haven't connected to anything. I have no carrier on my phone. It's just a phone, but they still know where I am all the time.
I turned off as much as I could, but I had to turn it back on because it got really annoying when I'd be like somewhere where I didn't know how to get home and I'm typing in my address and it thinks I'm in New York and it can't pull up my blah, blah, blah. So I just turned it back on. But
it doesn't make sense that it would bring up New York because I wouldn't even have my location on is what I'm saying. Like it wouldn't even be on.
I think it's just
no
like
service.
I turned it off. So it
just wants you to turn it back on again.
I think it's what's the word, like not like it's just trying to please me so it doesn't show me my location.
Right.
So that's so
nothing
stupid.
to worry about. You're fine, Bonnie. I turned all that stuff off.
The other thing is not exactly what this article is talking about, but people are always saying like these ads are getting crazy. They know everything about you, and I'm starting to doubt that. I'm starting to think that it's just a lot of the times just it knows your age range and maybe gender. So it knows I'm a female who's 27 because I have recently been nonstop getting like, do you want these diapers for right after you had a baby? Do you want like these things for your nipples when you're breastfeeding? And I'm just like, everybody says things like Jay Newton loves to say, the algorithm knows a woman is pregnant before she does. No, I think it just knows that you're a 27-year-old woman.
I think it's because your friend just had a baby. And so you're exchanging pictures and talking about baby things with that person. And they're like, oh,
well, that
baby
happens
ads.
to me all the time. Like my friend has a baby and I talk to them about it. It's like a really recent thing. But I also have always been getting period commercials too. It's like, which is it?
Right.
Cover all their bases.
Did I get pregnant did I get my period or didn't I? Yeah. And we've noticed an uptick in the microphone, coming on, which it's supposed to, I've got apps that are supposed to show me what's going on, but too many things are popping up ad-wise for it to be anything else. So even though they say that there is this way of turning it off, and if you don't get permission, the thing is there's, everybody's got 50 different apps on their phone that all have different permissions. And if one of them is wrong or not the way you choose it, then that's still, that has control over your entire phone. And the thing is will this ever go back? Will we ever get back to a point where we have some semblance of privacy in our daily life?
There would need to be like a massive EMF.
EMP,
whatever it is. EMP. When they destroy all the electronics.
Anything shy of that, I just can't imagine it.
Or just people choosing not to use it anymore, which I also don't think will happen because I'm not going to choose to not use a smartphone anymore.
Right. Or are you going to be able to? Will you be able to have a job? Will you be able to do anything in life without this technology? And, unless you're going to live in the middle of the desert or in the middle of the woods and be completely disconnected from society, I think that's the only way to beat it at this point. It's insanity.
And it's like, if you want to live in a community, you can't really do that. Like, you could live with just your immediate family in like the middle of nowhere, or like several people that want to move out there with you. But I want to live in a like large community where if I want to get meat and stuff, I can get that from the person who raises animals. And if I, just want more than one friend, I never have been one of those people that was like, I want to move to the middle of nowhere. And I know people like it. Like David from New Mexico talks about how he lives in the middle of nowhere and collects rainwater. It's just not for me. And it's like,
right.
One thing I always hate is like, well, if you don't like it, you can do something that sounds terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? I shouldn't have to.
Right.
That's my point.
It's not like smartphones it's not like these things have to go together. Like smartphones and government surveillance don't have to go together. And I think that they could be separated, but probably never will.
And that's the sad part, that we have reached this point where there's likely no coming back from it, and it makes me sad. And the thing is we have no expectation. I don't think anybody kids themselves and believes that government will actually be moral about this or not use it in ways that it wasn't intended to be used for, or follow the courts. I think that ship's left the port. I mean, the idea that government would police itself in any meaningful way is asinine. I don't know that anybody believes that.
Well, it's a weapon against their own people. And the first thing that the government looks for in any kind of new technology is, how do we turn it into a weapon?
As a demonstration of how powerful RTB data, that's this data that's being bought and sold, is, an intelligence contractor used data from the dating app Grindr to track gay government employees from their offices to their homes. Tao reported in his book another firm called Near Intelligence used RTB data to help anti-abortion groups track women who visited Planned Parenthood clinics. All right. Now, this is nothing that needed a warrant. This just means they bought the data and they were able to do it. Earlier this year, Wire revealed that Near Intelligence had used RTB data to build a dossier on sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's associates, tracing mobile phone owners from his private island to addresses in the continental United States and other countries. I mean, there's going to be a lot of examples where you go, okay, well, Jeffrey Epstein, bad guy. I mean, I'm glad they were able to trace these potential, well, that's the whole thing. These were people not charged with a crime.
Yeah. Like, even in the article we read about the YouTube video, it said an suspected cryptocurrency launderer. That probably just means that Mr. Elon Musk was selling cryptocurrency and not accused of a crime. There was no proof that he did any crime, but they were trying to figure out his identity as a person selling a product on the internet that wasn't created by the government and that has never had any laws written about it. Well, I guess they do now. I forgot that they do now, but they're asinine laws and shouldn't be in place.
And instead of spying on everyone, they could just do, like, I don't know, investigative work on the one person that they're interested in.
Sounds like it'd take a lot of time.
Like a lot of time.
Let's just skip all that and buy some data.
You know, there are more unsolved murders now than there were like 50 years ago.
Well, that can't
like the
be.
Percentage.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You sound very convinced.
Sure. I'm very sure. I read it just like yesterday.
Yeah.
I was reading an article about it.
Well, the cops found out they have no duty to do anything about
Well,
those.
that, and it's hard. It's hard to figure it out.
It's hard work.
If we can't just spy on people and figure out what's going on, how are we supposed to figure it out?
I mean, like, if you had to go sit in a car and eat stale donuts and drink lukewarm coffee and do a stakeout, you had to do that like all night, every night for a week.
They can
Would
have
rather
fresh
do
donuts
that, or
at the office.
I'd just rather just buy some data and let's see what shakes out of that. That's easy.
Yeah. And then we'll say, look, we solved this thing that was on no one's radar, and it isn't even really a crime because there's no victim, and
we trapped people into this.
Yeah, and we got people to do this crime.
Right. So give us some props for that.
Yeah.
We created crime.
Yeah.
Whoops, hold on. That didn't sound right. We didn't create crime. No, we caused...
Stimulated crime.
Yeah.
Sounds like a government word.
Stimulated. That's good. Yeah, it's asinine, and the thing is people will fall for this, and they'll fall for, well, you know, they did catch that one guy, so I guess that program's worth it, and they'll look at people like Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, and, you know, Rand Paul, another senator who's kind of mouthy about all this stuff, and go, well, they're just, you know, you're not being a good patriot, you know. Ron Wyden, he's a left-wing loony, and Rand Paul, he's a Republican kind of libertarian guy. So you can't trust any of that, but they're the only ones making any noise about this. And the rest of Congress, the rest of the Senate at least, you know, they fall in line and they just do whatever Biden says, which is funny because all the Republicans are falling right in line with Biden on Israel and everything else.
Subject that's state related, New Hampshire related instead of just national, that's pretty similar. New Hampshire has the worst red flag laws. They're just not called red flag laws. As soon as someone accuses someone of a crime and gets a restraining order, well, you don't have your gun rights anymore.
That's true.
So New Hampshire has like the most stringent red flag laws, and the thing is, the Republicans in the state house don't care because they're not called red flag laws; they're called restraining order protections. And it's like, well, we're not going to touch that. Yeah, people without any process are getting their guns taken away, but it's not called red flag law, so no one cares. And what, you don't want to make people not safe by not taking everybody's guns away immediately whenever they get a restraining order. I got a restraining order on someone who came to my house and said I'm going to stab her multiple times and like blocked me from going in the front door. And whenever I did, the judge just checked that he's going to take his guns away.
Right.
Like I don't know if they went and did it because he lives in New Hampshire, but there was like these check boxes that the judge could check, and first they ask you. So they ask you, what are you asking for? You ask, I didn't check, take his guns away, but they did it anyway whenever he made the order.
Right.
I don't know if they went and did it, but somebody I know has gotten, well, I can just say it, Olu has gotten his, the caller, got his guns taken away just because he was accused of something by a state rep, and got a restraining order. But he did get his guns back because he argued about it in court.
Yeah, and what stops somebody from using that as like
a weapon?
You know, a weapon against you? Like, I'm going to file a restraining order against you to take your guns away just because you didn't even do anything to me. I just don't like you.
Right.
We're going to go to the phones. Turd, you are on Free Talk Live. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So the reason why I'm calling tonight is because I want to talk about something that's been burping me up real good lately. And just to preface the call, I called Free Talk Live about 2 years ago. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago now. And at the time, I believe it was Ian and Nikki that were on the air. Actually, it might have even been Nikki's first show at the time. But I called about Drake Bell. And at the time, he was being accused by some of-age girl that he, quote-unquote, groomed her or something like, whatever the hell that means, when she was a young girl. And at the time, I actually called BS, and I still do, by the way, because Drake Bell had married a woman who was Hispanic and much closer to his age and very beautiful. I'll hold on the line for the next segment.
Thank you. 603-283-6160 is our number. Give us a call. Get in line at freetalklive.com.
The easiest thing in the world for a reader to do is to stop reading, according to the late, great Barney Kilgore, who became managing editor of the Wall Street Journal in 1941 and grew the paper's circulation from 33,000 to 1 million by the 60s. And he'd be pleased to know that his paper is one of the few that people now pay to read online. Someone else pre-internet who realized that attention is fragile? Motown Records founder Berry Gordy. In the early 60s, when his label dominated the charts, he'd bring a dozen real people into the Hitsville, USA studios and audition songs. And he'd ask, if you were down to your last dollar, would you spend it on this record or would you buy a sandwich? Today, attention span seems like an oxymoron. For tips on cutting through the clutter, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. It comes after the Biden campaign announced the president would not be taking part in the originally arranged commission debates in September and October. The first debate will see the two men meet in Atlanta on June the 27th, with the debate played out live on CNN, but without a studio audience. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. Robert Rico is reportedly fighting for his life, according to his defence minister. The gunman, who shot the PM 5 times, was detained at the scene. The Slovak government say the shooting was a politically motivated attack. Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. President Joe Biden recently withheld weapons due to concerns about the impact on civilians. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
A separate package including $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million for tactical vehicles and $60 million in mortar rounds has been moved forward, although it's not clear when that will be sent. US weapons experts say, though, plans to deliver aid to Israel only days after plans to hold back actually reduce pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to pay more attention to civilian deaths.
A barge has collided with a bridge in Galveston, Texas, causing part of the Pelican Island Bridge to break off. An oil spill has also been detected, but at this point no injuries have been reported. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin, Texas.
Pictures show a large concrete slab at the front of the barge. Officials say the vessel it was towing broke loose, then hit the railroad portion of the bridge. Experts are on scene assessing the extent of the damage. The causeway, which is the only way off Pelican Island, is closed. Texas A&M University Galveston is located on the island, and the school says power has now been restored to campus.
US inflation eased slightly last month, according to new data released on Wednesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price for a basket of goods and services, increased 0.3% in April, less than was expected. FSN Sally Patterson reports from New York.
April's CPI figures show efforts to ease inflation could be paying off. According to the Labour Department, overall prices increased 3.4% from a year earlier, down from 3.5% in March. In a statement, President Joe Biden said fighting inflation and lowering costs is his top economic priority. But he says there's a lot more to do.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is your call-in number, the number where you control the radio and you get to talk about what you want. In studio, it's Chris.
Lori.
And Bonnie.
And it is Chris cleaning up the coffee I just spilled everywhere.
It's pretty lucky, though, because it could have been, like the keyboard or something much worse.
Oh,
so.
we just got the mouse. I like to clean off the mice every once in a while. The mouse balls.
It's under the mouse, sorry.
It is.
I was like, I should probably say something, I don't know.
So I can say things like mouse balls when I'm referring to the computer equipment, correct?
It doesn't have a ball. It's not one of those old-fashioned ones. I hate those. I mean, if you get used to it, you get used to it. But do you know what I'm talking about? With like a basketball-shaped little ball at the top?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hated those. My grandpa was like, this is the only kind I want to use because it's the first kind I bought. So it's the only one I'm going to use. And it was the only one at my grandparents' house. It's like, Jesus, this takes so much getting used to. It's so annoying.
The ones I could never use, I could never get the hang of a trackball.
What is that exactly?
Like a mouse upside down with a ball.
That's what she's talking about.
That around?
Yeah, the top,
okay.
the top part.
Oh, yeah, that's the trackball. So the ones that you just use and it has a ball at the bottom also usually sucked, but at least it was simple. But I didn't know that's what it's called. The trackball was absolutely confusing.
That is it. We're going back to Turd Ferguson. Hold on. You there, Turd? Nope.
He's
Turd?
not muted. So you got to press the button underneath the yellow. Oh, did you?
Turd?
Sounds like he hung up or something.
Yeah, I think we lost him. We're going to go to Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. Sarah, are you there, Sarah?
Oh, you have it muted. Oh, he hung up on Turd. Oh, it's number 4.
Oh, I'm on.
There you go.
Sorry, we hear
Sorry
you,
about
Sarah.
that. Technical difficulties. I haven't been in this chair in too long. How are you tonight, Sarah?
Oh, okay. Hey, did you hear that the Waymo is the robo-taxi? They're in San Francisco, they're in Phoenix, Arizona, and Los Angeles, and I was amazed. Over 50,000 people a week are using it.
What is that?
Wow.
What's a robo-taxi? Like it's a self-driving taxi?
Yeah, and
that's pretty cool, actually.
They're out of the Waymo. It's called the Waymo, and there's the 2 other brands that's going to come out, and they're trying to regulate it.
I always found this a strange contradiction. Sarah hates drivers, but she likes driverless cars. Isn't it the same thing? It's a car moving around on the road. It could hit a pedestrian, and it won't feel anything over it.
Right. You won't even feel bad.
You know something? The robo-cars are better drivers than actual New Mexico drivers. That's why I'm all excited about it.
So
I can't argue.
Yeah,
maybe
you're in agreement, you know?
maybe these robo-drivers will end up running over all the New Mexico drivers, and Sarah can live in a perfect world.
Yeah, they should put it in a monster truck form. You can just run over the bad drivers. I have detected a bad driver.
What happens if you're in one of these robocars and a bad driver comes at you? Does the robocar hit them, or does it crash you like into a tree or something? If that's the other option.
Well, yeah, and how's the AI programmed? I mean, what does it do when it gets into these things?
Who does it sacrifice?
Right. Is it like a trolley question? I don't know.
The robocar's like, I don't know what to do.
Kill them both.
So I was listening to the news, and the guy had a test ride on it, and it was doing all well, except that when it got to an accident scene, two cars wrecked in front. All of the other drivers went around the accident, except the car was like pondering and was just stuck.
I can't go around. Yeah, that's a great example. Like sometimes there's even just like someone on the side of or some like worker on the side kind of the road. So you might have to stop it first, but then you're like, okay, I can go around now. What would a robo taxi do with that? Would you just be sitting there forever? Like, Jesus, we're not going to wait till this guy's done fixing the, the whatever the construction people are doing.
And that's the thing. I don't know that we have technology. I mean, I know we want self-driving cars.
They don't have common sense.
But yeah, I don't think we have the technology to do that. And how many people have been killed by Tesla's self-driving option.
Has that happened?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
No, there have been deaths, and
Right, I just didn't know.
everybody's just kind of like chalking up, well, we're getting there. It's like, no, people are dying.
Wow, I honestly didn't know we were even this far, though. I met a guy like a couple months ago who told me that he used the self-driving feature all the way from the bottom to the top of California on Highway 1, which is like steep
That's
cliffs
crazy.
on the side, and he let it drive him the whole way. It's like, oh, if something crazy's happened, you can take control, but he never had to.
Right, and the whole idea is, you're there, your hands are right by the wheel as you've been driving on a highway for like 4 hours, and you're snoring.
It'll,
the
like,
only thing that
beep
wakes
at
you
you,
up
too.
is the drool like running out of your mouth.
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep like that. I'd be like too vigilant to see what's going to
That'll
do.
be a nightmare by the cliff. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like La Jolla
Yeah,
or something. I don't remember exactly. My grandma's told me about it. She's like, oh, you should totally go on that highway one day. And I'm like, no.
That's beautiful. Well, I
bet
think
it
it's
is.
101 he was talking about.
It's 101. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I thought it was 1.
Yeah.
But it's just goes all the way up the side of
Mm-hmm.
California. And this guy, yeah, he drove all the way up there. He said it was like hours and hours.
I
and
can imagine. It's so many turns. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd really have to be paying attention. So, it's a
I-
gutsy move.
Yeah,
But
like, I'm
I'm
gonna
not going
test
to put
this out.
Yeah.
I
Here.
don't trust technology enough.
I know,
No,
I really
I
don't
don't
either.
either.
I know that like it would be a great idea. I mean, it would be a great thing if it does do well, though. Like Riley is always talking about how he would love to have
Yeah.
a self-driving car because he's blind, so he can't drive himself. So, I mean, like I hope for the best with it, but I am very, very skeptical. And right now, there's no way I'd let it drive me up like that guy did or anything.
I've never bought one single technological item, like electronic item, that has not messed up. Never.
So you're like absolutely not
Absolutely
an early
not.
adopter.
Yeah, no,
You're
no
not going to be
way.
the one who says, yeah, self-driving thing sounds good. Let me in.
Nope, let everybody else test it first, and
Hey,
I
Sarah,
still
thanks
might be
for your
like,
call.
nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane, but people do. I'm going to go and see if we got Jet on the phone. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
My opinion is that if somehow we could eliminate white people, all of our problems would go away.
Well, I
Not my
disagree.
problem.
Yeah.
I don't think he means that.
Just kidding.
Okay, just hovering
no,
over
I
the
heard-
dump button. Go ahead.
I listen to a variety of shows during the week, and of course, what do I hear all the time? What word do I hear all the time? All the time?
Whiteness.
It's no. It's called this thing, GOV something or other. And
the G word, we call it.
And what I've been trying to get people to understand is it doesn't exist. It does not exist. They're only people. And these people form into gangs, and the gangs get guns, and they write down rules. So what bothers me once in a while, and it really it does actually bother me for, I would say at least a half hour, that that the general populace always looks at these people, whether they're in costume or out of costume, as somebody special.
Well, they are special. They're our representatives. I mean, we elected
heroes.
them. They're doing the hard work, so you can relax and relax in the knowledge that you have good politicians doing all the things that you want them to do, right?
But what I'm focusing on is the illusion and delusion that causes people to become so docile and resigned to the idea that certain people, certain humans, have a greater, what do they call it, greater access, privilege, greater right to your life and property than you do. And so
why do you think that is?
Well, I think the obvious answer is guns. If these people didn't have guns, or the general populace did not believe that they were under constant threat of violence.
General
from the
populace has guns too.
Not as many as Joe Biden pointed out very classily.
Well, And here comes the delusion again, that somehow the populace guns or the people's guns are not as qualified or not as viable or not as, I don't know, acceptable as the guns for the people in uniform.
Well, there's
Because I
probably a
was
law
just
that
watching
states
it.
that.
I was just, talking about laws. The laws are just the opinions of a small group of people, and half of them are that. So, but I was watching this YouTube about this guy who was walking down the road because he didn't have a driver's license, but he had an AR strapped to his back. And of course, the cops roll up and they say, they ask him all kinds of questions, including, "What's your ID?" or "Where's your ID?" And of course, he responds, "I don't have to give you ID if I haven't committed a crime," that kind of stuff. And they simply took over the whole situation and essentially said, "You've got to give me that weapon. I have to check it. I need your ID to be able to check if you're actually capable or legally able to carry that weapon."
Do you know what state this was?
Yeah, because that's a state by state. So what state was it?
Let's see. I think
Even
it was
the-
Texas.
Wow.
Texas doesn't have as liberal of gun laws as everybody makes it out to.
You mean in a good way,
Well,
like liberal, like free?
Right.
They've gotten better since I moved here. Like I
Right.
heard about, I think they have constitutional carry now.
Right.
I used to think like, oh, they must have the best gun laws, but I found out they didn't. And then I moved here and they got constitutional carry. I wasn't going to have a gun while I lived there, so it didn't really
But you were
matter to me.
talking about the duty to protect, or the obligation to protect earlier.
We did.
And even in that conversation, we're discussing two different levels of society, two different classes of society. Those who are supposed to be doing a certain thing on our behalf, but yet at the same time have some kind of magical authority to be able to beat you, cage you, tase you, kill you if you don't agree with their opinions. So this is what bothers me every so often, essentially, that there is this mass delusion that somehow there are certain humans that have the ability, the right, whatever you want to call it, privilege, to do things that you or I may not do. So that's why I always say there is no such thing as government. It's only gangs with guns. That's it. And we tend to look upon those gangs as something special, and they're not.
Well,
I agree
No human
completely.
has any right to.
And thanks for your call, man.
I think that is why we brought up like that there could be a private service doing this, but instead these are just people who do whatever they want with your money and call it protection when they have no duty to protect.
And I hate to keep going back to it, but how did they get all this power? I mean, how are all these things happening? Because voters elected people who probably shouldn't have been elected to office, who put in place all these things. You know, I feel sometimes that the American people love to complain about things, not realizing that their actions are why we have these things in the first place.
Well, it's
Go
because
ahead.
they want their rules to be made the rules that everyone else has to follow. And so they vote for these people that are going to enact their rules that everyone else has to follow, not realizing that there's all these other rules that they're going to make that they also have to follow that they don't want. People want to control everybody else, to live in their own little utopia, their own little echo chamber, how everything works the way they want it. But that's not how it actually works. You give these people power and then they abuse it. And then they take more and more of your freedoms, but they don't ever learn.
And I think that's part of human nature. I mean, you do want to get the best for yourself. I think, that's something that's ingrained in every one of us. We want the best. And if somebody presents a system where, okay, well, if you're really active and you really, can get the types of people who will do what you want elected, then you're going to be further ahead. And that's, to me, sort of the poison that the government has become. And it's just the system the poison is what gets into people's minds that makes them believe that they can have a positive influence on their life through politics and through government. And it's just a false narrative.
Wanting the best for yourself is one thing, but a lot of people don't just want the best for themselves. They want the best for themselves and also for everyone to do what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the part I don't understand. I don't think that part is human nature.
And,
I don't want everybody around me to just do it. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. I just want to live my life and be left alone, and I want to leave everybody else alone.
I think a lot about like where did ideas start, and it always like I was always noticing these things as a kid where I'd be like, how do I know for sure that that is truly moral? Just because like in a class I'm in like a how to be a social good person class, which I don't even know what they'd call this off the top of my head. Type classes you'd be forced to be in public school. And one thing that would come up, we would like, it'd be a class where we'd read like 7 habits of healthy blah 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 people.
Right.
And one thing that comes up a lot is like stepping on others' toes to get ahead, and they always tell you that that is bad, but it's always in the one specific context of like, oh, if you step on someone's toes to make more money, that's not good. But no one ever thinks of it in terms of making laws.
Right.
Like, exactly what Lori's saying. Like, just wanting, like, oh, I want to have some chickens in my yard. And, like, that's not evil. But
Right.
it is evil to be like, I don't want them to have more chickens than me. Government goons, go get their chickens, you know?
Or I don't want any chickens in my yard, so my neighbors also should
Yeah.
not be allowed to
Right.
have any chickens.
And I kind of want to do a thought experiment about the people with guns thing that he was talking about. Like, well, of course, I think it's wrong that cops can just go and make people do something because they have guns. But let's think back to the situation where there's somebody parked right outside your house who's stabbed you in the past,
Right.
and you want them gone. And if you have private security, I don't think there's anything wrong with, even though he's not in that moment breaking a law, you've hired this private security, you have people with guns. Like, listen, Princess Lori wants you away from her house.
Right.
And that's just how it is. I'm not calling you like princess. I'm saying like I would be like the princess of my, and if it was like real Ann Capistan, I would be Shire Free Church Princess Bonnie, and I would have all kinds of like strong people with guns. And if you've stabbed me before and you're sitting right outside my house, I don't care that there's not something written down that says you can't sit outside Bonnie's house. I'd be like, well, stack up or leave because I have security and they're going to make you leave. And there's nothing immoral about that. Like, that's harassment. And that's just like, it's just so stupid to follow things based on like, well, what's written down about it on the scrolls. Like, because Skeeter was like, well, he's skeeting. He is skirting the line of the law, so it's fine. It's really not.
Yeah, but if I could hire my own guys to stand out in front of my house with guns, he wouldn't even be parked there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be an issue.
Right.
Right.
And it's like you have common sense. Like the taxi doesn't have the common sense to go around an accident, and you have the common sense to know that somebody who's stabbed you in the past and won't stop calling your phone and is sitting outside your house is a threat. And if you're just not allowed to protect yourself because the only people you're allowed to pay to have guns are busy going and telling people like, why do you have a gun? Give me your ID, and like disarming people who legally and lawfully should be allowed to walk around with guns without causing any problems, then we have a problem.
Right, or they can't come check out, a threatening person outside of my house because they're busy pulling people over so they can write them tickets for going 2 miles above the speed limit.
Yeah.
It's insane. And so is there any happy ending to any of this? Is it the only one I see is that there is a massive shift in human understanding of ourselves. That more people need to be able to understand that, yes, you do own yourself. And because you own yourself, you have complete control over you, but you don't have control over anyone else.
I think that's coming.
And we have to understand that on a big
that's
scale.
Optimistic.
I think that's coming. I see people more now waking up to the fact that, there's government overreach and police abuse and all of these things. I see it happening, and I hope that it keeps happening, and I think it's the younger generations coming up are going to be able to make some kind of difference. I hope they are. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetimes.
I don't remember if we read it on the show or not, but something from the Wall Street Journal that Ian sent me was saying that according to studies, Gen Z is the most questioning of the government than any other one before. Maybe it was questioning just of the elections, but I think it was authority in general.
I suspect that there is some truth to that they are, man, I've gone back to this a couple times, but talking to college students right after like the New Hampshire primaries and asking them, I was curious, did you vote? And the most common answer I got was some variation of, no, they really convinced us we had to go out and support Joe Biden.
Well,
and now they just look at themselves as duped, that there was absolutely no reason for them to support Joe Biden. And this is on, a New England liberal college campus. That's what they're saying. And as I talk to them about voting, in the future, they're like, yeah, maybe. I mean, so I kind of believe that there is a growing doubt amongst young people.
I think that also comes down to the interconnectedness of people, that they're seeing more. Yeah. Like, 60 years ago, you didn't know what was going on in the next town over unless you went to the next town over or had somebody who lived there that you knew. But now everybody sees everything that's happening in their community easily. You just go online.
Right. And there were police atrocities 60 years ago.
Oh, yeah. But people didn't know about them.
You didn't know about it. Yeah. And it certainly didn't get reported.
Yeah. But now people know. They see it because we have a 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
So the thing they're promoting this 24-hour news cycle and the surveillance state for their own needs, but maybe it'll come back and bite them.
Right. And I think that's a good point, that there's two sides of everything, and the fact that they can see everything that we do, we can also see a whole heck of a lot more that they do, and more eyeballs on them is absolutely a good thing.
And there was a whole year that was all about police brutality for these young people's lives. Yeah. Wasn't a thing in the 60s or whatever you said.
No.
When you were 30. I'm just kidding.
Back in the 60s. 1860s to you. I look at things like George Floyd, and that was horrendous and sad, but, to his credit and in his name and in his honor, I will say that it was probably a great thing for America, and no one should ever have to pay that kind of price. No one should ever have to go through what they put him through. But that woke a lot of people up, and it made them angry, and it made them mad. And
I just think it was all done on purpose, because why that one specific one? I was trying to show people, like, look at this video of this black person getting tortured and killed by police.
Right, Eric Garner.
Like, constantly in 2016, and people are like, honestly, we're kind of tired of you posting that on Facebook. It's making us sad.
Yeah.
And I even got called racist in 2016 for saying we should abolish the police. And then 2020 comes around, and it's like, you're racist if you don't say abolish the police. And but the thing is,
which one am I?
They purposely.
What race are police officers?
Well, they were saying that it was racist because they were like, this like lady who's from Alaska, like a native from there, said, and she lived on the military base I lived on in Utah. She was like, it's racist to say that because lower income people can't afford. Well, you can't afford anything when you're already being stolen from for the compulsory version of it.
That is crazy. We're about to go on break, and we want to hear from you when we come back. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
For the listeners, each talk show has like you're in the Joe Blow Army, or, the Ditto Heads. Do the lefties have it too?
I couldn't tell you.
Ed Heads, isn't?
Yep, Ed Heads.
Yeah, Ed Heads. So they all have them. I really want to hear from you.
I'd like to rename our listeners Mindless Free Talk Live Zombies. What do you think?
Free Talk Live automatons.
Call in if you're a mindless Free Talk Live zombie.
What does it mean to you to be left? What does it mean to you
progressive?
To be right? What does it mean to you to be conservative? What does it mean to you to be liberal? I think they're very vague concepts. that pit people against one another. Many people who otherwise, in the absence of being able to plaster themselves with that label, might find out they've got an awful lot in common.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. It comes after the Biden campaign announced the president would not be taking part in the originally arranged commission debates in September and October. The first debate will see the two men meet in Atlanta on June the 27th, with the debate played out live on CNN, but without a studio audience. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. Robert Rico is reportedly fighting for his life, according to his defence minister. The gunman, who shot the PM 5 times, was detained at the scene. The Slovak government say the shooting was a politically motivated attack. Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. President Joe Biden recently withheld weapons due to concerns about the impact on civilians. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
A separate package including $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million for tactical vehicles, and $60 million in mortar rounds has been moved forward, although it's not clear when that will be sent. US weapons experts say, though, plans to deliver aid to Israel only days after plans to hold back actually reduce pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to pay more attention to civilian deaths.
A barge has collided with a bridge in Galveston, Texas, causing part of the Pelican Island Bridge to break off. An oil spill has also been detected, but at this point no injuries have been reported. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin, Texas.
Pictures show a large concrete slab at the front of the barge. Officials say the vessel it was towing broke loose, then hit the railroad portion of the bridge. Experts are on scene assessing the extent of the damage. The causeway, which is the only way off Pelican Island, is closed. Texas A&M University Galveston is located on the island, and the school says power has now been restored to campus.
US inflation eased slightly last month, according to new data released on Wednesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price for a basket of goods and services, increased 0.3% in April, less than was expected. FSN Sally Patterson reports from New York.
April's CPI figures show efforts to ease inflation could be paying off. According to the Labour Department, overall prices increased 3.4% from a year earlier, down from 3.5% in March. In a statement, President Joe Biden said fighting inflation and lowering costs is his top economic priority. But he says there's a lot more to do.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the civil unrest in Georgia, where riot police have taken on protesters demonstrating against a new foreign agents law passed by the country's parliament. The law, backed by Moscow, requires organizations to register as foreign agents if more than 20% of their funding comes from outside Georgia. It's similar to laws that have been used in Moscow to silence Kremlin critics. Anne McElvoy, executive editor editor of Politico Europe, says the law has become a lightning rod for Georgians who fear that Vladimir Putin has territorial aspirations towards their country.
There's always been an independent streak to Georgians, and even in the Soviet period, they were a bit more freewheeling. This attempt to impose very Putin-style law, which basically says that if you have any contacts or receive any funding for your organization from outside the country, then you're a foreign agent. This just has the smell of a kind of Putin-style attempt to clamp down on anything outside the control of those who want to keep control of what happens inside Georgia.
Opposition parties in Georgia say one byproduct of the law is that it will damage Georgia's efforts to join the European Union. Protesters on the streets of Tbilisi say the government's move to pass the law is a direct capitulation to pressure from the Kremlin. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold two TV debates in June and September. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. And Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Jack Daniels announced today its plan to start marketing directly to children, adding, quote, "Why not?" Executives for the whiskey company told reporters that they've already slated dozens of television spots showing 10-year-old children drinking tumblers of Jack and Coke in playgrounds, and that the company was planning on, quote, "just seeing how it all played out."
Every year, Jack Daniels sells millions of dollars of great American whiskey to men and women all over the world. So, for our next ad campaign, we basically just thought, hey, why not just start marketing this stuff straight to 10-year-olds? I mean, if they catch us, they catch us, but we'll see how far it goes, and hopefully we can sell some alcohol along the way. Sure, some parents groups could get upset, especially if we go with our idea of moms serving their kids cranberry Jack at snack time. But
in other news, a doomed rabbit will teach an 8-year-old a lesson about responsibility, and a torrent of soap issues from a wildly unexpected part of the dispenser. Well, that was it. It's all downhill from here, bud. For more, visit theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Our phone number is 603-283-6160, where you can control the airwaves. You can tell us what you're interested in talking about. And hey, if you don't, we're going to bring something up anyway. So in studio, it's myself, Chris, or Lime Chris.
Lori.
And Bonnie.
And
I just didn't know you're going to go by Lime Chris just because the trolls started calling you that.
The trolls call me Lime Chris, so I'll wear it proudly. This episode of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Fork Fest, happening June 13th through the 16th at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, so there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. For more information and to contact other attendees, you can visit the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. And we're going to jump right to the phones where we have John in Nebraska. I'm sorry. John, you there with us?
Hey, yeah, thanks for taking my call.
That's all right. Welcome to Free Talk Live.
Yeah, you were talking about the government spying on people and purchasing information or whatever. I mean, I kind of think that that's just the world we live in now. I don't like to say that. I don't like feeling that. It sounds really creepy, but that's what they're doing, and they've been doing it for a long time. It's how they stay in power. Just think that there's certain things, there's certain rules and guidelines that they should play by, so it doesn't come back to bite them. I mean, you see in the news all the time. You see like soldiers, like people in the military. They take information and then they give it to another country, or they take blueprints or something. You can look this stuff up.
Right.
It's always like it happens. People leave the country and they take information. Edward Snowden did it. I mean, it's just it's one of those things. I think that there's rules that they should play by, so it doesn't come back to bite them, is what I'm trying to say. Like, they should be respectful of people's, like, personal, private information. I don't think that they should be, you see a lot of times, like, people are very unprofessional with how they handle things. They're laughing, they're joking about somebody. Maybe they can look up somebody's psychological profile,
Sure.
Maybe they have access to that somehow, or maybe they, know what kind of medication people take, or they have certain information that not everyday people have access to. And I think that when people, there's just like two ways they can go about it, right? Whether they're good or bad cops, good or bad government. I kind of think of it like this, when cops like go and they do an investigation and they're doing a stakeout, they can either park far enough away, they park their car, their van, or whatever, and do their surveillance from a distance, respect their privacy, maybe not let you know that they're doing it, and that could be good or bad depending on if you're actually committing any real hardcore crimes or not.
Right. But
or even if
I guess where I'm at is
right out in front.
In doing this, and if they're, to me, I expect somebody who took an oath to uphold the Constitution to respect the principles behind the ideas that were the reason that we wrote the Constitution in the first place. I say we. I wasn't around then, Bonnie, before you make some crack about me being around in 1787. Well, I was too young for that group. But that's the thing. I mean, you and I can talk about these issues, and we can talk about them amongst us as hosts, talk about issues and how that's wrong, but can't government officials just look at these actions? Do they have to justify to themselves, well, I mean, there is a legal way we could do that. I mean, why does legality have anything to do when we're talking about morality?
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
But I mean, if you look at it that way, I mean,
I want them to look at it that way.
I understand, it's a government of we the people. We should all be looking at it this way. And like I said, it does come back to bite them when they violate people's rights, because and you look at what people do, like they whip out their cell phones, they start recording cops when a cop is like just going about his normal day, not doing anything wrong. But then, when something does happen, I mean, it's right there. I mean, they got to watch themselves now,
Right.
I'm not so sure about like when they're collecting information, how that could come back to bite them.
I just think that, you're thinking that, the worst thing is, they're going to look at your information and laugh at you. But really, the worst thing that they do is they go, okay, we need everybody that was in this vicinity during this time, and we easily have this access to it
And because of this court precedent, we can say that we were just, following up on a lead about this actual crime, even though we're gathering up information of people just to find out who was even possibly there.
Yeah, and it's think of all the people that get falsely imprisoned because of that. It's a lot worse than just getting laughed at.
Or I don't like this person who speaks out publicly against the government, and so I'm going to go through all of their data and find something that I can call illegal and arrest them.
Right.
Because so many things are illegal.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, okay, like George Floyd, I guess that's a bad example. I kind of feel like, if they're collecting all this information, someone's going to go take it and take off with it and share it with another country or something like that. Not like that so much matters. I mean, not like, but my thing is if they're going to be doing this anyways, say you run into a situation where you're going to falsely arrest somebody, regardless of whether you're going to win in court or not. If you falsely arrest somebody, you have all this information at your fingertips, like, okay, we know what kind of medication they take. We know that they have psychological issues. We know that, they have this disability. Do you approach the situation knowing all this information, just tackle that person to the ground and not give them their inhaler when they're asking for it, and, basically just murder somebody?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying like they would do that. I mean, they have.
But they do.
Cops have done that.
There have been times where somebody's
done.
like, I can't, I need medical assistance, and the cops don't call for like an hour, so the person dies.
Yeah.
Right.
This
that's
happens.
what I'm saying. Like, if they have all that information, they should be held to a higher standard, which means they should be taken to court. hey, you knew that this person needed their inhaler and they were screaming for it before they died.
Yeah.
That cop or whatever agency that is should be held accountable for that.
Yes, but they've made them untouchables.
Well, and that's the part that we need to constantly challenge, and it's a shame that we need to constantly challenge them. John, thanks a lot for the call, man.
Yeah, they have qualified immunity, so even if they were proven to do something like that, it was like there's no question. They admitted they did that. It won't matter. They can't face any repercussions because, well, they were doing it on the job and they were trying their best.
Right. Mm-hmm. Let's go to another call. William, orders. You're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, is that me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I hope everyone's doing well.
Thank you. We are. How are you?
I was going to call. I'm good. I was going to call about banks. I think a few days ago or a week or so ago, some other crew was on Free Talk Live was talking about how corrupt the banks are and fractional reserves and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, I'm walking my dog. I'm in a lot of breath. I'm trying to get exercise.
Okay.
That's okay. We understand.
I got out of breath just walking my dog yesterday.
These things do happen.
And I was really shocked.
Yeah, I've been working. I'm walking fast too. It's not I had a heart stent about a year ago, and I've been staying in shape and whatever.
We're glad to hear it.
Good that you're walking your dog.
Yeah, and I usually run or jog, but he can't handle it. Anyway, I can barely handle it. But anyway, so I was just tell a brief story here. My dad, he sold a truck, I don't know, about 5-8 years ago, something like that, before COVID for sure. And it was a used truck, and anyway, he sold it for like $15,000 if I remember correctly. And he had one stipulation: he wanted cash for it. So these people came and they're like, okay, we'll take it. And, they wanted the cash. So they went to his bank, the person who's buying it.
Right.
And I don't know the name of the bank, but this is in Tyler, Texas, which is a population of about 110,000 people or something. Anyway, they're like, okay, the bank was, all right, cool. We'll give you a $15,000 cashier's check or whatever. He said, no, I want cash. Like, well, wait a minute now. That won't be very safe for you to walk out. My dad said, I don't care.
Just give me the cash.
They like, yeah, exactly.
I wonder if they just didn't have it, because a lot of times the bank won't have $150,000. They'll have like 30 or 40,000, and then they'll have to order the rest for you. Not saying that's an excuse. They should have the cash that they say that they have, and they should give you it if it's just no other reason than you want cash.
So did your dad get the money?
Well, and I want to clarify, or I want to point out, Bonnie, you're completely correct, but I think you said 150,000.
Oh.
I said 15,000.
Oh.
As
It
in
wasn't that
1,000
nice.
or 10,000.
I don't know.
You
And
would
I'm not messing
overpay.
with her. No, because I agree. Like, you go and try to withdraw 150,000. Yeah, odds are good. The bank might not have it. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking $15,000, you guys.
So did they end up being able to do that? Were they able to
couldn't.
provide?
They had to send him to a different branch, okay?
The bank didn't even have $15,000.
We're talking $15,000, you guys. I mean, this is again, like Bonnie said. And I'm not making. I agree with Bonnie. Like, yeah, if you're talking about $150,000, that's a chunk of change. Maybe not all banks got it. I mean, they should.
Yeah, they should.
But I'm just thinking about regular businesses. I mean, like Walmart. We don't have a super center in Keene, New Hampshire, but we've got a little tiny Walmart, and I guarantee you they probably have $100,000 just sitting in there waiting to be picked up or deposited.
You bet. And okay, so that was that one little story, and he ended up getting it, but he almost had to, they had talked to managers, and this is a huge thing. And again, back to if it was 150,000, yeah, okay, I get it. So anyway, so that was 5 or 7 years ago or something. Well, recently, he was pulling out money for Christmas, like he's got a bunch of grandkids and children. I'm one of his kids, obviously.
Right.
So I think all in all, the money he was pulling out was like to give everybody like $300 each, including their spouses,
Right.
Nice.
Or $150 each, including spouses. So like in my case, we got $300. Anyway, he pulled out, so he went and pulled out, I don't know, $5,000-$6,000. Or he was trying to, like, oh, we give you a cashier's check. It was the same thing. He had to like get a manager involved and all this stuff for like $5,000. I mean, anyway, and they did have the money. I'm just saying, they were just acting like, what? Who would put, like, man, I'm trying to give cash. I don't give people cashier's check for Christmas.
And I'm sure, that they were asking him all kinds of questions about why he wants to do it, which is part of like the Patriot Act things
and
that banks
know your
have to do.
customer and all those rules.
I took out like almost all the cash out of some bank accounts during whenever there was going to be run on the banks, and you kept hearing about there was going to be just doing my part, trying to spur people to do a run on the banks. And I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, they were just like, so what are you doing with this? And I was like, said what I was going to be doing with it, and they were just like incredulous and asked more than once, and like just start asking me questions about my life, and it's like it's so uncomfortable and terrible. It's none of their business. I hate banks.
You have to tell me what you're going to use your own money for, so that I can approve or not.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And one last thing I'll say, I just did the other day, yesterday, I pulled out $3,000 cash because I got a furnace replaced on my home. Anyway, while I was there, there was just a furnace, not the AC. Anyway, that's a whole different story. While I was there was two other guys. I think one guy was pulling out 10 or 15,000, another guy was pulling out about 10,000. And I was watching you guys. Of course, I'm like, I wonder if they have the money. They had the money, and they were complaining. And the tellers were complaining, like, that money I gave you. She's like, I already gave it to you. I'm out. You got to go over there and get it. Anyway, they did have it. I just thought that was funny.
It is crazy that banks would not have what they say they do. You have a $10,000 balance in your bank account. You should be able to go there at any time and get the cash and be able to do with it what you want, but they make excuses. Thanks a lot for the call, William.
Or at the least you should be able to get it like the next day, but they were always saying like, we'll have the rest of it like a week later, and it's just, you can't get that money like the next day. You don't have like money delivered here every day. I understand them not wanting to be like a target for theft. It's like, oh, they took all our money at once, or maybe they don't want to give it to you all because they need to have a certain amount left in the tills for the other people for the rest of the day.
Maybe they should hire better security if they have a business of keeping lots and lots of money.
Well, when I was a young child, like back in the 1800s, banks were expected to have all deposits in the bank. And that was the thing, that all your money, if they said you had X amount of money, you could go there and withdraw all of it. And then we got into fractional reserve banking. So banks only really had to have $1 for every $10 deposited, and that was the thing. And then Trump signed off right before, actually it was during COVID, where they dropped the requirement down to zero. Yep. So no bank has to have any of the money actually on hand. So
how could they have it on hand and use it also at the same time?
It's crazy because all bank money is now ones and zeros. We have a CBDC. It's called the U.S. dollar, and there is no real money. There is no economics behind this real money, this fake money, and that's the sad state of affairs we're in. This just depresses me. When I talk about banks and banking and the Federal Reserve, it just, I need something to cheer me up. I want to talk about cotton candy and things like that. Isn't that a great? Candy. I love cotton candy too.
I like just like dropping in my mouth and letting it dissolve itself.
I know. It's like the least depressing thing is so just good to talk about cotton candy. I just feel better having. Like, you can't see me at home unless you're watching our webcams, but I got a big grin on my face.
It's watch.freetalklive.com.
Exactly, when I just said cotton candy.
I don't understand the appeal. The only thing I like about cotton candy is squishing it into a little hard ball. That's satisfying. That's satisfying.
I like that too, but then popping it in my mouth.
I don't think it tastes very good.
And Lori, I defy you to tell me anything that could possibly be bad about cotton candy that's going to wipe this big grin off my face.
There's nothing bad about cotton candy.
I am known to be slightly defiant. So, this article is from apnews.com.
Oh, great. Here she goes again.
Iowa's county jail fees helped fund cotton candy and laser tag for department, lawsuit says.
Oh, come on. You're just bumming me out.
I mean, it's about cotton candy.
Okay. I did say that, didn't I?
It's just like they have evolved. They don't want donuts anymore. They're tired of donuts. It's cotton candy now. It's just so silly.
They're self-conscious.
They have to get sillier.
They're self-conscious about the donuts. They don't want anyone to see them eating donuts.
They need their fix of sugar, so it's going to be cotton candy.
And laser tag.
And laser tag. Waterloo, Iowa. Civil rights groups filed a class action lawsuit on Monday accusing an Iowa Sheriff's Department of mishandling the collection of jail fees, some of which helped fund recreational expenses like laser tag and a cotton candy machine at a shooting range.
That's perfect. That's two of my favorite things, and now they're sullying it by cops doing it.
Like a real shooting range or a laser tag?
No, I want
an actual shooting range.
That would be great.
Oh,
wouldn't that just get your gun all sticky?
That could be taken in so many wrong ways. I'm just not even going to touch that one.
All right.
At the Keene, I think it is, county, or Cheshire County Fair here near Keene, I think it's in Swansea technically, there was a vendor with like a room as big as the room we're in, maybe like half the size, with just like the walls were covered with cotton candy bags of every flavor you can imagine, like popcorn flavored cotton candy, watermelon, mango, spicy, and I got like wedding cake, but it just kind of tasted like root beer.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
I know, but I like root beer cotton candy, so I would have just got that if I wanted it.
Right. It could have been just
we went there
mislabeled.
too, and the kids got watermelon, and I thought it tasted like cotton candy.
Yeah, I thought that it was like it didn't taste like its flavor, so
it just tasted like cotton candy.
So they were using departmental funds to provide themselves with laser tag and cotton candy.
Mm-hmm. The lawsuit in federal court alleges that convicted prisoners were forced to sign a confession of judgment, agreeing to a balance and payment plan for administrative and room and board fees before being released from the Black Hawk County Jail in Waterloo, about 90 miles northeast of Des Moines. Any cash carried by a person when they are booked is seized and applied toward the debt, the complaint said.
Wait, what is the debt is for their room and board being imprisoned? I've never heard of something like that.
Yeah, Florida too. They make you pay to be in jail.
Yeah. Wow.
And then if you owe them money at the end of your stay, then they will just come after you endlessly.
You could just not put them in jail.
You could.
And then they don't owe you.
You could.
Or don't have to pay you.
It's wild. The for-profit prisons that all of us are paying for.
Right.
And then are also getting paid for by the prisoner. And then are also getting paid by the government.
Do they pay to
I'm
live
sure
there?
the feds contribute something.
Yeah.
Do
Which
they
is
pay
also
to
coming from us.
live there and also do free labor?
Probably, yeah. I think most prisons have labor, right? Free
Forced
labor for the prisoners. They pay them like $1 or something an hour.
Well, they do that, but they can rent them out and lease them out. I mean, there's call centers in jails now. I mean,
really?
it's crazy. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
That should bother people if it's not because of slavery. It should bother people because really low-paying, unskilled jobs like that are being given to slaves instead of you. So you can't go get it. You're like, I can't get a job right now. Well, the slaves are doing it.
Right.
That the government owns.
And you can't compete against slave labor.
Yeah.
Well, you can. You can
that used to
provide
be
a better
the-
product, but
The most, like, number one example when people were like, oh, if you want to get a job that pays good enough money and sometimes do it from home, but not always, go get a call center job. It sucks like heck, but anyone gets hired there. They pay you an okay amount of money. You can sometimes do it from home. That's always like something people would suggest when you're like, I can't find a job right now.
Right.
And most of the time people would say that. You'd be like, yeah, but that sucks too much. Like, yeah.
I don't.
But if you really need a job.
Right. You really should. But again, and that's just one industry. I mean, how many industries are the prison industrial complex in? I have no idea.
And what does that have to do with
Rehabilitation?
making people pay for their crimes and being
Right.
rehabilitated? Like, all that's going to do is cause more recidivism. You go to jail and rack up this big bill that you can't pay, and then when you get out, you have it hanging over your head with the threat of more jail that you then again can't pay for.
Right.
That's crazy. Florida is a disgusting place.
And you can't get a job because then now you're a felon and all of these things. The whole system's broken. In a statement,
please.
The Black Hawk County Sheriff's Office said inmates receive a statement of what they are owed when they are released, with the option to sign a confession of judgment outlining a payment plan. That is not required, according to the Sheriff's Office. Iowa allows county sheriff to seek reimbursement for the administrative fees and room and board, but the lawsuit alleges that the policies in Black Hawk County demand an individual signs away their legal protections without due process or the ability to consult their lawyer and are therefore unconstitutional. In those circumstances, they have no bargaining power, no attorney, zero meaningful advocacy of what they're doing and what they're giving up, said Rita Betts Austin, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Iowa. ACLU of Iowa and Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit Public Justice, along with other law firms, filed the suit on behalf of Letitia Roberts, who is described as having served 2 sentences after being charged with operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. Roberts was made to sign the agreements before getting back her possessions, and it was not notarized in her presence, according to the complaint. So they wouldn't even give her things back to her if she didn't sign.
Yeah, that's...
And then you say that the cops at least say it's not required, but it is required because you don't get your things back. And
right,
you
it's
owe
coercion.
Money. Yeah.
603-283-6160 is our call-in number. This is Free Talk Live.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait on the counter.
Now.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are scheduled to hold 2 TV debates in June and September. It comes after the Biden campaign announced the president would not be taking part in the originally arranged commission debates in September and October. The first debate will see the two men meet in Atlanta on June the 27th, with the debate played out live on CNN, but without a studio audience. Slovakia's Prime Minister is undergoing surgery after he was shot multiple times in an assassination attempt. Robert Rico is reportedly fighting for his life, according to his defence minister. The gunman, who shot the PM 5 times, was detained at the scene. The Slovak government say the shooting was a politically motivated attack. Washington is moving forward with another $1 billion in military aid for Israel, despite US concerns about a potential full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. President Joe Biden recently withheld weapons due to concerns about the impact on civilians. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
A separate package including $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million for tactical vehicles, and $60 million in mortar rounds has been moved forward, although it's not clear when that will be sent. US weapons experts say, though, plans to deliver aid to Israel only days after plans to hold back actually reduce pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to pay more attention to civilian deaths.
A barge has collided with a bridge in Galveston, Texas, causing part of the Pelican Island Bridge to break off. An oil spill has also been detected, but at this point no injuries have been reported. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Austin, Texas.
Pictures show a large concrete slab at the front of the barge. Officials say the vessel it was towing broke loose, then hit the railroad portion of the bridge. Experts are on scene assessing the extent of the damage. The causeway, which is the only way off Pelican Island, is closed. Texas A&M University Galveston is located on the island, and the school says power has now been restored to campus.
US inflation eased slightly last month, according to new data released on Wednesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price for a basket of goods and services, increased 0.3% in April, less than was expected. FSN's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
April's CPI figures show efforts to ease inflation could be paying off. According to the Labour Department, overall prices increased 3.4% from a year earlier, down from 3.5% in March. In a statement, President Joe Biden said fighting inflation and lowering costs is his top economic priority. But he says there's a lot more to do.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. This is Chris in studio. I'm joined by
Lori
and Bonnie
and Coconut.
That's my dog I'm holding.
Well, I thought he was taking
They're like,
on
are you
hosting.
Lyme Chris or Coconut Chris?
Exactly. I don't know.
What's he talking about?
I've had Lyme disease. I don't know.
Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
these things. God only knows who I am.
I think I'm muted.
Oh, Lori might be muted. Yeah, we probably heard her with our ears say her name.
Is that no?
Oh wait, you're not. No,
I just couldn't hear myself. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it was the
Sorry,
bumper music.
We were being loud and raucous. We shouldn't do that.
Sometimes it's hard to tell when somebody's muted when you've just said your name because it's like, well, we hear her with our ears.
Right.
So we think we heard her.
And I think we're going to go to the phones. We've got Alu on the phone. Alu, you are on Free Talk Live. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
I have
man.
two
How are you?
corrections to make. I think you hosts have made two mistakes, either you or other hosts, in the last few days, so I'm just going to correct you.
Okay.
I think a few days ago, it might have been Bonnie or someone mentioned qualified immunity and holding police accountable. Bonnie, was that you or someone else?
I don't know for sure. Like what in what context?
Just say someone else. Then
Someone
it's
else.
not you. Okay, so someone else, not Bonnie.
Well, they mentioned that police sometimes do things like kill people and other horrible stuff, but they're not prosecuted because of qualified immunity. So for clarity, the criminal and civil courts are two totally different things. Qualified immunity protects police and other government agents from being sued, such as like a 1983 lawsuit for violating someone's civil rights. That's a lawsuit, and police get qualified immunity. Judges and prosecutors get absolute immunity. But even the cops who get immunity from lawsuits, that qualified immunity almost always protects them. It's very rare to overcome that. Now, as far as prosecution for crimes, like let's say a cop comes into your house and starts shooting you because he doesn't like your face, he will probably not be prosecuted for homicide, and that's simply because of prosecutorial discretion.
Right.
Prosecutors all have 100% discretion in whether to prosecute, and prosecutors are literally coworkers and colleagues and friends with cops. They work together daily. That's what they do. That's why they almost never prosecute unless there's tremendous public pressure, like Derek Chauvin with George Floyd.
Well, don't forget about, they may fear for their lives in some of these cases.
That's
so.
what I
You
thought
could hurt
that-
their feelings.
Yeah, and you could hurt their feelings.
I thought that this
In
was
some cases,
under
like
qualified
if an acorn
immunity.
falls, then yes, they fear for their lives. Like that.
Well, I understand that too.
Acorns
Acorns
are
are
loud.
scary.
Yeah.
So
They
they're
are terrifying.
Dangerous.
So they're untouchables, but for many different reasons.
Well, I
Right.
thought that this is part of qualified immunity because they say, like, oh, well, we can't have cops afraid to do their job. So, like, if they accidentally shoot someone, well, we can't have them afraid to shoot any bad guys. Like, isn't that because of qualified immunity, or is that just why they won't
because of
prosecute?
lawsuits, yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess there's both, but when police and others defend qualified immunity against like bills or other things that would remove qualified immunity, they say we don't want police to think about being sued whenever they hear an acorn, they shoot first and think later.
Yeah.
We don't want them to have to take extra time to think about whether they'll get sued. But I mean, similar for the prosecutorial side for a criminal prosecution, if prosecutors had a habit of deciding to prosecute cops who kill and rape people, which they almost never do. If, let's say, there was a law, let's say Bonnie proposed a law in the legislature from New Hampshire saying anytime a police officer kills someone or rapes someone, the prosecutor has to mandatory prosecute that cop, like to the best of their ability. They would oppose that bill by saying, well, we don't want this bill to pass because then police might second guess themselves when they shoot people, and we don't want that.
Right. Yeah, it's insanity.
Terrible reasoning.
And
people should
Yeah.
Google
So I mentioned all this in
cop
prison
shoots an
guilty.
acorn.
So
go ahead.
So, Bonnie, I think I mentioned the qualified immunity for civil and prosecutorial discretion. I think I had a chapter on that in presumed guilty. So I guess you got to read the whole book again.
It's been a while, actually. Yeah, Oliver wrote, and my favorite book by him is Presumed Guilty.
Right. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my other complaint about you guys is a few nights ago, someone, maybe Richie Rich, mentioned Vermont has the best gun laws. That's not true anymore. They had no gun laws. So they were the original permitless carry. Constitutional carry without a permit was called Vermont carry by the old timers because they were the only state that had it. Now 26 or 27 states have permitless carry. But Vermont, like 5 years ago, under a Republican governor, Republican Phil Scott, passed a whole slew of gun bills that he pretty much proposed, and like a bunch of gun bills passed, limiting magazine restrictions and bump stocks and 21 years old to buy anything, including long guns, and a bunch of other regulations that restricted guns. So Vermont is not like tied for number one in gun freedom anymore. Vermont is now like.
What is number one? New Hampshire? Other than the red flag laws?
And a few others. Yeah, New Hampshire and a few others will be tied for one, but a few states have permitless carry now, so maybe it could be a 5 or 10 or 20 way tie, because like the majority of states, like 27 states, have permitless carry now, which is incredible.
And I remember moving up here into, New Hampshire when I moved up here. This was, close to 10 years, more than 10 years ago. But I was just amazed by how liberal Vermont's gun laws were compared to New Hampshire. It was like
liberal in the good way.
Liberal in a good way. I still use liberal as like they did when I was young in the 1700s.
I'm just I'm giving clarity for the listeners.
I understand. When I say liberal, I mean in a way that promotes liberty, not the way it's used now. Sorry.
The opposite.
But yeah, and it just amazed me that, we were fighting for all these things to happen to get to, constitutional carry and all these different things in New Hampshire, while Vermont, arguably the bluest state I'd ever lived close to, was great on so many of these things at that time.
It sucks whenever there's a state around New Hampshire that does better at freedom than one little area like Massachusetts. You can have your baby at home, no problems.
Right.
New Hampshire, it's like you need a permit, and not necessarily literally, but
And
there's all
none
kinds
that
of
devil's salad for you.
Yeah.
You can't have any marijuana. But I think we're approaching a time when something's going to change on that, and maybe Bonnie will tell us about that in a moment. Alu, thanks so much for your call, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's insane that, New Hampshire, and you hear it a lot on Free Talk Live. We talk about, the strides we're making, but some of these strides are from sitting way, way, way back in the crowd, and marijuana laws are one of the places we shouldn't be where we are. We should be way, way further along than we are.
I still argue that we're doing better than some of the legal states because they just make things much more unfree with their legalization laws than New Hampshire has with the decriminalization efforts that have already gone in. Like, people basically don't get in trouble for having marijuana on them anymore. In 2020, Ian got the numbers for 2019, how many arrests had been made since legalization, which it only happened in like 2018 or something.
Right.
And there were like 2 arrests in all of Keene in all of 2019. And it was just like, there was something else they were arrested for, but then they're like, well, you have marijuana on you, so they got him for that too.
Stack that charge.
Yep. But people don't just like get their houses raided in New Hampshire because they have marijuana anymore. So I think that it could be even more decriminalized. Like, people should be allowed to grow it and sell it, but it should be not subject to all this regulation.
And I understand your point there. I mean, every time another law comes that comes close to meeting what our governor says he would consider passing, it means it's going to be horribly taxed. It's going to be horribly restrictive. It's only going to be sold in state-approved stores, and none of that to me is freedom.
Like New Hampshire with their alcohol, it's only sold in state liquor stores. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And they want to duplicate. They want to duplicate the revenue generated by our liquor stores with marijuana, and that's just not the way to go about it if we were truly free.
This from the New Hampshire Journal. I think it's an opinion piece written by Sue Hamola. It says the New Hampshire Senate will vote soon on whether or not to legalize recreational marijuana. And I didn't see one good bill for marijuana this year, but I also wasn't like really reading every single bill this year. But it says Governor Chris Sununu has stated that he will sign a legalization proposal that is done, quote, the right way. Very vague. Pro-marijuana New Hampshire legislators are already busy planning how they might spend the expected revenue generated from this new addiction tax. Oh, wait, sorry. That says addiction tax. Maybe this person is just anti-marijuana.
No, I suspect it has to do with where that money is intended to go. Like, we'll solve all our other drug problems with all the money will come in from legalizing marijuana or something.
It says, so they're already, rubbing their hands about the new revenue that might be generated, and it says, and how they can turn it into a political win. Even the alternative treatment centers have been busy engaging in the conversation to make sure they get cut in on the recreational action. The only thing legislators have failed to do so far is to really talk about the underside of legalization and what our state might look like if we follow our New England neighbors right off the cliff. The first thing that would occur would be the flood of big marijuana money into our state, regardless if we embark on a commercialization or state-run model. State-run being like state liquor stores, but for marijuana. Think the legalization effort is happening at a grassroots level? Think again. Philip Morris, one of the largest tobacco companies in the world, invested $20 million into Psych Medical, a marijuana company that has created a marijuana inhaler. Altria. Oh, what? What were you going to say?
A marijuana inhaler? Like a...
Must be like a vaporizer. Wait, no, I just realized
it's got to be a vape. It's got to be a vape,
That's
right?
a weird way to call it then.
Okay.
So, Altria, maker of I can never say this word, Marlboro,
right,
invested $1.8 billion in Cronos for a 45% stake in the Canadian-based marijuana company. Anheuser-Busch invested $50 million to partner Tilray through subsidy brand Labatt to create a marijuana-infused drink. Heineken, Molson Coors, and those are all obviously big, giant corporations. They're all in on marijuana, big marijuana.
Of course they are. And there's going to be a ton of money flowing into marijuana. Don't be surprised that big companies want a piece of this huge industry that is being developed in spite of the fact that it's illegal. At the federal level, every state in the union is, and right now I'm so glad to see states just disregarding federal law and
disregarding
passing,
it.
Yeah, and
Well-
that's the rightful thing to do.
Well, and the feds won't come after you for marijuana if you're like a big company or like anybody that's just, participating on a large scale. Only if you're like some guy who they really want to get for something else and they find a way in with marijuana.
I do think this person's anti-marijuana in general, which I'm not. That's not why I chose to read this article. It's more because I don't want it done the legalization route. It's not like we had to legalize tomatoes. You can just grow tomatoes in your front yard. You can sell a tomato to your friend if they want it. And I don't think plants should be treated any other way.
Yeah. See, Daryl W. Perry, who I used to co-host with, he used to love to say, I think marijuana should be regulated just like tomatoes.
I think marijuana should be regulated just like tomatoes. I'm trying to do him. I can't really.
But then you start to go into like the FDA regulations all about tomatoes, and you find out there is tons of legislation that specifies what size a tomato must be, and what color, how much it can be sold for.
I've never had the FDA knocking at my parents' house for their tomato garden, though.
Right, but if they were to sell tomatoes across state lines, then it becomes interstate commerce, and that's all regulated and everything else. So it's
Can you just hand someone tomatoes over state lines? Can you grow your plants on one side
because
and
that
the
would
other?
be
He's too far away from a state line.
Even if you give it away, to someone in another state, you have created an interstate commerce, which the feds absolutely could regulate. Yes, because you're taking from one market and providing it to a market in another state.
That
and that's
makes
interstate.
Something make a little more sense. Not that it's good or makes actual
It's
sense,
horrible.
but in the Jeremy Kauffman SEC thing, they were saying that if you sell a bunch of your stuff before bringing it out into the market, then it means something and the SEC can regulate and that you broke a SEC rule. And he was like, but we were giving it away. And they're like, that still counts.
So if I buy local honey and ship it to my sister in Washington, I'm breaking the law.
So if it were person to person, like as a gift, probably not. But if you were selling, and don't forget, I mean,
what if I made her pay me for it?
I can't remember the case law on this, but it was Wicker was one of the parties, but this is a case going back where a guy raised wheat on his own land and he fed it to his own cattle. It never left the state, but because he was affecting a marketplace, then the Fed said that, hold on, we can regulate that, even though it never crosses state lines. I mean, that's how far the Feds can go. God, somebody call in with this this case. But it's one of the most horrible ones out there that caused the Feds to be involved in almost every single aspect of commerce in America, regardless of whether it crosses or doesn't cross state lines.
That's just terrible. Well, okay, it shouldn't be regulated at all is what I mean to say. And I guess tomatoes aren't a good example, but that's just because of how unfree the world has gotten, not because of anything having to do with how dangerous tomatoes are, obviously. So, but I do think this woman is anti-marijuana because the next thing she says is, at the same time this addiction for profit capitalism moves into our state, the black market, and the thing is, I'm not even against saying the fact that I do think people can get addicted to marijuana. It's not like it's somehow some big terrible drug and no one should touch it, but I think it's crazy to think that no one's addicted to marijuana. Like, I know plenty of people who would have a very, 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 very bad time if they tried to quit right now. And I've had it myself where it was like really hard to quit. Not as hard as Kratom, but pretty hard still. And same type of feelings, like I'm like, I should smoke right now when it won't add anything to my life and I won't even really feel the high because I have too high of a tolerance at that point. Like I think you can be addicted.
Right.
Addiction is the American way, though. Like coffee and sugar and
as
commercials.
I drink my coffee and eat my cookies.
Yeah, we're all drinking
fast food.
Wickard v. Filburn is the lawsuit. It's considered Wickard v. Filburn is the lawsuit, and it's considered the one lawsuit that caused most of the regulatory power that the government exceeds its constitutional rights or constitutional powers to do. An Ohio farmer, Roscoe Filburn, was growing wheat to feed animals on his own farm. The U.S. government had established limits on wheat production based on the acreage owned by a farmer to stabilize wheat prices. Filburn grew more than was permitted and so ordered to pay a penalty in response.
This sounds
because
like
his wheat
less
was
than
not sold. It was not regulated commerce, let alone interstate commerce.
You grew too many plants, and that makes the price too cheap for everybody else. And so we can't have that.
It sounds like less than what they did the Whiskey Rebellion over.
Yeah, it was insane, and it affects us still. I mean, this is why the Feds, when we talk about anything, we talk about marijuana, we talk about tomatoes, we talk about anything interstate commerce. You talk about crypto in the case of Jeremy Kauffman. I mean, that they would bring up interstate commerce. That is thanks to Wickard v. Filburn. So because the Supreme Court back in the 1930s, 1940s decided this, we're still living with the effects.
I meant to say that backwards. Insane. It sounds like I think that they did the Whiskey Rebellion over less, is what I meant to say.
That's true. Yes, they did. You're absolutely right.
Dang it. I hit my microphone. I was trying to get coconut hairs off my phone so I can read.
Oh, my.
So she's saying that addiction for profit capitalism is moving into our state. And the thing is, I'm not against capitalism, but I don't necessarily think it's like some kind of good to have these like tobacco company Anheuser-Busch types. I don't know. They're just dirty corporations. So why not start at
That's because government protections, though.
Yeah, exactly.
If it wasn't for all of that, then they would never be as big as they are.
Right. Or like they wouldn't be bad. They'd be seen as good people because they just produce a product people like. It probably wouldn't be really, really, like adulterated tobacco.
Full of cyanide. And
yeah, be something people want.
And that's the thing. All these problems, nobody looks beyond, I don't like big companies because they make lots of money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why do they make lots of money? Because they have all these protections because of this system that's developed in Washington that allows them to pay their way. And I don't blame them for paying their way to huge markets.
Well, it's because they're all putting money in each other's pockets.
Including to the senators and...
Yeah.
My family's owned a lot of Philip Morris stock for a long time behind Marlboro and all that. I mean, that was good for us when they would bribe politicians and get laws passed that were favorable to them. You know, my family made more money off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that, all corporations are bad, or once they hit a certain size, they become evil.
You can grow tobacco in Oregon.
No, but you could invest in Philip Morris in Oregon. Yeah. So
I was like, I just think of that as a southern state thing.
It kind of is.
Well, back in New Hampshire, she's saying the black market cartels will be busy inventing new and devious ways to undercut the legal market. Again, not something I really am concerned with.
If they don't want black markets, then don't have any market.
Yeah, don't.
I mean, that's the point.
A controlled market. There will be a market, and it will just be the market instead of the black market or the green market, the government green lights or whatever.
And yeah,
right. Just have a free market.
This is surprising to some legislators because other people have been telling them that legalization would bring a more regulated, safer product to the state. Tell that to the tobacco companies with their, or like dead rats in the tobacco or whatever. That it can't just possibly just be organic tobacco in a leaf. Well, I guess some of them do that, like American Spirits, but like the big companies like that,
they're not nearly as addictive.
They're only able to get so bad, like that, as bad as cigarette companies get because they're protected and not allowed to fail and stuff like that. And I guess they're not allowed to do advertising anymore. But anyways, it's a complete myth that there wouldn't be a black market because in every legalized state, the black market is flourishing. Maine is currently struggling to get a grip on the 250 plus illegal pot farms run by Chinese cartels. What? Hiding in plain sight in their less populated areas. I didn't read this whole article.
That's okay.
Chinese cartels in Maine? I didn't know about that. California's law enforcement agencies face similar issues as their law enforcement officers stay busy every week cracking down on illegal pot farms. I mean, they could just not.
But these people don't understand that the reasons, and she's calling for regulation and she's calling for all these different solutions, except the obvious one, which is you have free markets. If you have free markets, people are going to choose a healthy. If you had a bunch of pot there, you could choose to buy which one. I want the one that was grown by that nice farmer I met, and he's a really nice guy, and his family helps him out, and the kids help pick the buds and all that good stuff. Or do you want to go to that shady Chinese, factory farm that's up there behind the gully? I mean, why would anybody do that? Nobody would. Mm-hmm. In that case, you would have people choosing the better product. And she offers nothing of how to get there other than I just don't want big companies around.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought this article gets into decriminalization instead of legalization because it doesn't.
She brings it up, and it's a good story to poke holes in. I mean, sometimes that's what we need to do and use the opportunity to point out what is wrong with looking to the government for solutions. I mean, it's going to fail horribly, and I wish it wouldn't, but they're going to do it again, even though they've seen all this go wrong before.
I think this is a pretty dumb thing to bring up. She says, besides this laundry list of negative outcomes, we haven't even touched upon the ever-present smell of marijuana that moms and dads in Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts struggle to avoid when they're enjoying a day out with their young children.
Oh, no bad smells.
My God, no bad smells.
It smells good,
smelling.
but like, still.
And this is the same lady who coughs when somebody smokes a cigarette 30 yards away.
Oh,
hey, thank you for Free Talk. Thank you for tuning in to Free Talk Live.
FreeTalkLive.com is where you can go look at more.
And we will be back tomorrow.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants.